if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mail on Sunday now, and an NHS midwife has been suspended for being pro-life. We don't want a midwife who's pro-death, do you, Steve?
You could try to free up beds or something like that, but I shouldn't answer the question. I'll give you the headline. NHS Fife is not safe place to work, claims student midwife suspended over pro-life beliefs. New scandal erupts, says health board that took action against nurse who refused to share changing rooms with trans doctor. They love a long headline, don't they? That's it. Thank you very much. Good night. The quick version of this is a complaint was raised. She posted something on private social media. Always, that's where you find it, isn't it? Then there was a fitness to practice investigation. Then there was the health board that barred her during this, even though they didn't have to. There was no case to answer was the verdict. They still didn't want her back and eventually had to give in. So she does have the job back. Now, she doesn't want an apology. She wants them to say why this won't happen again, because she thinks an apology would be hollow. But she is American. So I just thought I'd mention that. So it's not all good, which explains why it's not a safe place to work. She's using the language of the kind of offended left. But in this
I think when she
case,
says safe, I mean safe as in you can get fired, Nick.
Yeah, as you say, if you can't be pro-life as a midwife, we've really jumped the shark. A couple of things though. The Facebook discussion group was called The Secret Community for Midwives in the Making. Guys, you need a better name, number one. Number two, it wasn't secret.
What's your one called, Nick?
You came up with the names, you should know. It wasn't secret anyway, because someone's obviously given it away and got this person in trouble, because she's against the regime view, which is, for some reason, the prevailing, pervasive, permitted view is kill babies. But some people are like, hey, maybe we should let them live. And that's banned.
There is the bit of the story where UK law says that a nurse can be involved in an abortion if they can refuse to be involved in the abortion.
Have ethical concerns.
And they're allowed to express their... So, like, legally, everything was on her side.
Yeah.
That level of the system
That's what I mean. It's not about the law, it's about prevailing de facto rather than de jure.
And even though she wins, the process is the punishment in these cases, and it dissuades other people. And moving on, we've got Nick with the Sunday Times with a story about how women have used HR to keep the working man down.
Absolutely, it's the Lost Boys.
The little hands.
It's a big manly-sized story. It's meant to make me feel like Alice in the Looking Glass, whatever. Through the Looking Glass. I feel tiny. The Lost Boys, for the radio listeners, it's a very large bit of paper. The Lost Boys, how a generation of young men fell behind on women and pay. And, of course, we know this, where men have been left behind in education, they're failing. The system is based on coursework, which favours women. They're left behind in the workplace. There's an HR culture of snitching instead of a culture of autistic truth-telling that favours men. And this is just about that, how, you know, men are just having a terrible time across the board.
But if there's war in Ukraine, I mean, I think the virtues of being a man, being good at fighting, that's gonna be good for men again. Yeah,
and I can't wait until the pendulum swings the other way and there'll be loads of campaigns trying to close the gender pay gap to make sure that men earn more. I'm sure any day now, I've not seen anything on social media yet since this story broke, but at some point those same campaigners, I'm sure they'll be putting a lot of effort in to get men better in education, better outcomes. It's not about, it's about outcomes, it's equity, not equality. We need to make sure that men get better degrees.
Make men great. Men will come back through voting AFD and MAGA and things like that. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, well, if they don't do that and campaign for men to get more money, then it seems that it was all just something that was against men. Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday leads with, now stop the state visit for bully Trump. The Sunday Times has Reeves unlocks billions for Kyiv defence. The Observer has Royals welcome Zelensky after White House meltdown. The Sunday Mirror has We've got your back, that's Starmer to Zelensky. And the Sunday Telegraph has You are very welcome to number 10. And the Daily Star on Sunday has And they're off to Benidorm, something about racing. And that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests Steve and Nick. I'll be back here tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Simon Evans and Kerry Marks. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, then stay tuned for breakfast. And I hope to see you tomorrow night. Goodbye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Is it crunch time yet again for Ukraine as European leaders gather today in London?
President Zelensky receives a warm welcome from Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street.
And as the UK announces over £2 billion worth of funding.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, it follows that catastrophic meeting at the White House on Friday between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. But can the US and Ukraine mend their relationship? And what does this all mean for the future of NATO?
And then there, of course, is the matter of the second state visit that was extended to President Trump. But should it be recalled now? President Zelensky, of course, is meeting the King later this afternoon in Sandringham.
Over 2 weeks in hospital, Pope Francis's health takes a turn for the worse this weekend after suffering from an isolated breathing incident.
And then it was the Brit Awards last night. All sorts of people whose names I can't quite pronounce properly were the big winners. And celebs apparently made a splash on the red carpet.
We'll help you out, Anne, with that one. And then off to Hollywood. Preparations get underway for the 97th Academy Awards. Has your favourite film been nominated? Get in touch. Let us know your thoughts.
And then we're going to meet a bit later a hero firefighter who attended the Grenfell Tower fire. He is retiring after 12 years of service, and there he is. He's Sherlock, the working Cocker Spaniel. He's been with the fire brigade for years.
The most reckless challenge I've ever seen. That was the verdict of the Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish after his player Jean-Philippe Mateta spent the night in hospital as a result of a horror tackle from the Millwall goalkeeper Liam Roberts, who was sent off. Join me later.
Good morning. The sun will once again be shining for some of us. Find out where with me a little later on.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. Interesting, you called it a catastrophic meeting there, or at least our newsroom did. And then it was Nigel Farage, who a lot of people are saying, what's he going to say about it? He called it a spat.
A spat.
So did you see it as a spat or a catastrophic meeting between Zelensky and Trump?
Well, very diplomatic of Nigel Farage, because, of course, we know he's a huge ally and friend of the President of the United States. But it is incredibly difficult, I think, for the UK, particularly Sir Keir Starmer, trying to be that bridge between Europe and America. But I think yesterday, Anne, pictures spoke louder than words. Him leaving the Downing Street steps to greet President Zelensky from his motorcade, and the crowds outside in Whitehall.
Yeah. It was pretty unusual for the Prime Minister. Usually the Prime Minister waits on the doorstep of Number 10 for anyone to arrive. But Keir Starmer came out and walked down Downing Street towards President Zelensky.
He wanted it to be symbolic, though.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I must say, and I know people watching now will say Anne Diamond's a right lefty, and I'm not, by the way. But I was very proud to be British at that moment. I really was. I felt quite emotional about it.
I was very proud of just ordinary members of the public cheering for Zelensky outside the gates of Downing Street. And it was unprecedented, I think, for the Prime Minister to, as you say, leave the steps, walk down to the motorcade, embrace President Zelensky as well. But I think a lot of people are saying, diplomatically, this has been one of the best weeks for Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer since he was elected.
A lot of people saying at last he looks like a leader.
Well, yeah, because let's be frank, he's had a lot of bad press over the last 6 months or so, and he's pulled a blinder so far, perhaps,
so.
on diplomatic relations.
Yeah, and it is amazing that he is going to be hosting this meeting this afternoon, or is it at lunchtime? I'm not sure what time it is, actually, of Zelensky and other European leaders. That's going to be quite something. And then, of course, President Zelensky is going to travel to Sandringham. I'm told it's lunchtime, so it'll be while we're not while we're on, but others are on. Camilla, maybe. So it's all going to be happening today. And what we're not very clear on yet, and we'll find out, is whether that special summit, as it were, was already going to happen, or whether it is in some way a reaction to everybody's meeting with Donald Trump.
Well, I understand that the meeting between Zelensky and the King this afternoon was always planned. This was not in response to, of course, the spats that we saw in the Oval Office. But again, it is the head of state who is meant to be hosting President Trump for a state visit at some point, as per the invitation given to him by Sir Keir Starmer. Now, of course, front page of the Mail, we've got calls for that state visit to be rescinded.
Now, that's a different matter, isn't it, really? Because that's a royal invitation. And I would have thought once extended, it can't be rescinded, can it?
Has it been rescinded in the past? Can anyone think of any examples?
No.
I can't either.
I doubt very much if you'd ever find an example. It could be kicked into the long grass for years. Because state visits take a long time to plan. Won't that be the sort of the excuse that's used? But I just wonder, I mean, what did you think, Aidan? What was your feeling when you saw that moment outside Downing Street?
I wouldn't say pride necessarily, but I felt he had to do it because it was the mood of the nation. I think I was in a pub yesterday in Shepherd's Bush, and I actually agree with more of Trump's side of this.
Did you?
If I'm honest with you, in terms of the politics of it, the machinations of it, yes, I do. I have to be honest there. But the feeling, just in the pub, people I thought would normally support Trump on this were not in his court whatsoever. In fact, they didn't even want to talk about it.
Oh.
Gosh. Didn't want to talk about it.
It's amazing how 24 hours can change things.
Wow, yeah.
Let's talk about QPR instead, which was far more depressing.
Well, yeah, more on that later. OK, well, I'd love to hear what you think, though. I mean, whether you felt very proud at that moment, whether your mind has slightly changed about Keir Starmer and his leadership, his behaviour, his performance as Prime Minister, or whether you feel a bit more like Aidan.
Indeed. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say with your thoughts.
Yeah, it is a sort of real crunch time today for Ukraine, though, because the European leaders are gathering in London for that special defence summit, and it'll be really interesting to see what they say, especially in their statements afterwards.
Yes, it certainly will. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived yesterday in London, straight from that meeting with President Trump at the White House.
Yes, and of course there he's meeting with Keir Starmer, who reiterated his and the UK's continuing support for Ukraine.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, following the pair's meeting, Chancellor Rachel Reeves signed a £2.26 billion loan agreement with Ukraine to bolster its military capabilities.
And then later today, following the European Leaders Summit, President Zelensky is going to head to Sandringham, as we said, to meet with King Charles.
Absolute determination to stand with you, unwavering determination, and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. So important for Ukraine, so important for Europe, and so important for the United Kingdom.
We are happy, and we count on your support, and really, we're really happy that we have such partners and such friends.
Well, political commentator Tim Scott joins us now. How did you feel when you saw that moment outside Downing Street?
Well, I think it
really will not do Keir Starmer's poll ratings any harm at all. I think it's, as you say, Anne, it's given him a chance to rise above the fray and to look statesman-like, to look like a leader. And, there's only been one set of headlines this weekend, hasn't there? Fight, 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 following what happened in the White House.
But given that, isn't that endangering his relationship now, then, with President Trump, which was going so well 24 hours ago?
Well, it does put Starmer in a bit of a difficult situation. And I noticed the word has obviously gone out from Labour not to criticise Trump directly. But what they're doing by hosting Zelensky in this way and by having him see the King, hosting the European summit in London today, I think it does give a chance for Britain to shine after the disastrous meeting. It was certainly a disaster for Ukraine and others that they had the other day. But I do notice that they're not criticising Trump directly.
Well, let's talk about this summit in London today. 18 European leaders are descending on London, as well as President Zelensky, of course, is joining them. How unprecedented is it for a summit such as this to be called in London?
Yes, I mean, it's great to see it being held in London. I mean, it's been long planned, of course. It's not just because of what happened on Friday. And it's a European summit. Starmer's attending, of course, because it's not an EU summit. That's the important thing. There's an EU summit on Thursday when they're hoping to make further progress on defence cooperation. Canada, a NATO member, is attending. Finland and Sweden, new NATO members since the war in Ukraine, they're attending. And Mark Rutte, the former Dutch Premier, is attending as Secretary-General of NATO. So it's great to see Britain playing this leading role. And Britain still has a great role to play globally and in Europe. And I think as far as defence is concerned, I think we still just about have the best defence and security and intelligence capability in Europe, although that is setting a bit of a low bar.
Do you think they are all going to sort of sit round a table and say, OK, well, the writing's on the wall now, we have all got to step up our spending, our defence, and we've actually got to unite and show a united front?
Yes, I think they will, Anne. I think they're going to have to. The continued American military presence in Europe at the level it's been at can no longer be taken for granted. I think it's unlikely, even under Trump, that the USA would completely withdraw from Europe, but we cannot take the large levels of military commitment. The big preoccupation of the USA now actually is not Russia, it's China. And so Europe is going to have to do more. And it should have been obvious from Trump's first term, let alone his second term, that there's a feeling. I mean, I was in Washington last week at the CPAC conference. The mood on the Republican side, at least, is very much that they're a bit fed up with endless funding for Ukraine in a bogged-down stalemate war. They're also a bit fed up with continuing to pay 2/3 of NATO's budget. The two are linked, of course. So, yes, you're quite right. Europe has got to stand up and do more. Britain does. And, we can lead in Europe and lead globally, even though we're not in the EU anymore.
Well, Tim, if the US completely pulled out all of their funding and all of their support for Ukraine, could Europe go it alone in supporting Ukraine and having a defence against Russia? Or do you think ultimately we do actually need the United States to help out?
I think we're going to continue to need the USA for the time being, at least in some capacity. As I said, I think it's unlikely they'll completely withdraw. I mean, it's interesting that both Starmer and Mark Rutte have said to Zelensky, find a way back to Trump. You're going to have to go back and smooth things over there.
Do you think he would ever apologise to Trump? Well, because apparently the leak is from the White House that that's what Trump wants.
Yes. Now, what form would that apology have to take? Would it have to be public? Would he have to publicly eat a large slice of humble pie?
I would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, and Zelensky may... And there'll be a lot of sympathy for Zelensky. Whatever you think of him personally, because it's Ukraine, which we have supported, we've taken 250,000 Ukrainian refugees, there'll be a lot of sympathy for Zelensky because it's Ukraine. And I think... I think Zelensky might find it tough to issue a public apology.
Well, that was the thing, because we had 3 bilateral meetings with President Trump last week. President Macron of France, Britain Prime Minister Starmer and Zelensky. Macron and Starmer buttered Trump up.
Yes.
Essentially. They were very, performative, playing along with Trump's cause, singing his praises, etc., etc. Zelensky, complete opposite, and Trump having the completely opposite effects. So, as you say, would Zelensky have to bite the bullet and start singing Trump's praises in order to get a positive response out of the president?
He may have to, whatever people would think about that. I mean, that.
There are apologies and apologies, though, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
You can say, I'm sorry I offended you. Or you can say, I'm sorry that you took offence.
Yes.
And there's two
subtly different. Subtly different.
That's what President Trump would accept.
Yes. I mean, I have to say, Cameron, I thought Starmer was very good with Trump. I mean, he wasn't slow to get the royal invitation out of his pocket, was he?
No.
Which, and that's what Trump likes. Trump loves our royals, and I've heard on the grapevine that actually his big ambition is he wants the Open played at Turnberry, which is the course that he owns. He has a genuine affection for Britain. I mean, whatever you think of Trump personally, I think he has a genuine affection for this country. He loves our royals.
So what's his reaction going to be to this meeting this afternoon of European leaders who, as I said, at some point are going to have to make a statement?
Yes, they're going to have to. Yes, something is going to have to come out from this summit today, which is being held in London.
Will he be offended by nearly anything that happens?
Well, yes, I think with Starmer so publicly greeting, hugging him on the steps of number 10 Downing Street, I think there's a little bit of an implied rebuke there, I think, to Trump. And I think Starmer's played it very well, actually. Let's see what comes from this summit. I'm a little bit sceptical about the extent to which Europe will step up. I mean, at least we seem to be announcing a little bit more defence spending. I mean, we've done a lot for Ukraine, as well as taking so many refugees. We've given them a lot of equipment, a lot of ammunition, and this extra spending, I think, will go some way to replacing that. But a lot of the ammunition and extra equipment that we've given to Ukraine has not been replaced.
OK, political commentator Tim Scott, thank you for joining us.
Right, well, our poll of the day, how about this one? Today, we are asking, do you agree with the Prime Minister that Britain stands with Ukraine for as long as it takes? It was a sweeping statement, and I think some people might feel he doesn't speak for my opinion, but maybe he does. So that's the question. We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. Final result, of course, announced later on in Nana Akwia's show, and you can go to gbnews.com/poll for any more information on that.
Indeed. Well, let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And train fares in England and Wales will rise by around 4.6% from today. Rail cards are also set to rise, costing consumers hundreds of pounds more a year. We went out yesterday to ask whether you think our transport system is good value for money.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty good value for what I do every day.
Value for money, wow. With the current service, I would say not.
If the increase actually goes on improving the services, fine. But if it goes to the shareholders, that's another crazy thing. Why are the trains not in completely public ownership?
Israel has agreed to a US proposal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza. The first phase of the ceasefire was due to expire today. According to the US proposal, the ceasefire will now cover the Ramadan and Passover periods.
The Metropolitan Police have said farmers could be arrested if they drive their tractors at a march in central London scheduled for Tuesday next week. Organisers have said the so-called Pancake Day rally is aimed to be bigger and better than the previous two demonstrations as they campaign against changes to inheritance tax rules. But now conditions have been imposed under the Public Order Act preventing demonstrators from bringing tractors other than those limited with those already agreed by the organisers.
It was St David's Day yesterday. I think we've been saying on screen that it's St David's Day today, but it was yesterday, Borodar.
It was.
Yes. Shall we go and find out whether it really is springtime weather? Here's Craig's now.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. That rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we'll be getting the latest on the Pope's health. That's next on GB News Breakfast with Cameron and Anne.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Last week, Christie's Auction House in New York announced that it was holding an auction devoted solely to art created with artificial intelligence. Nearly 6,000 people have signed an open letter calling on Christie's to cancel the sale over concerns that the technology behind such AI art pieces exploits human artists and can potentially violate their copyright. And there are broader ethical questions at play too. Where do the boundaries of art lie? With me now is James Thomas from Martin Stanmore Auctions. James, very good to see you indeed. I don't quite see how you can have art without a human being. I mean, art to me is something which is produced by a human being which expresses something about the human condition. To me, that cannot be produced by a machine. How do you react to that?
I agree completely with what you're saying there. I think for us at Martin Stanmore, we're very much about sort of getting behind artists in a traditional method.
I sometimes say to my team, I've got a piece to camera to do now. Find out what AI would say that I would say. And, of course, what it comes up with. It doesn't have enough knowledge about what I've just experienced, so it's not a perfect example. But it certainly gets the tone. And, therefore, I mean, I'm completely replaceable. I mean, the next series that I do... Say that. Well, thank you so much. The next series I do of Railway Judges, you could perfectly well have an avatar and AI producing words that sound like mine.
It is very scary. It is very scary. And I think for collectors and investors, it's a bit scary for them too. I mean, a lot of our collectors at Martin Stanmore that we speak to, they very much prefer things that come from traditional artists, not just sort of blue chip works, but also up-and-coming artists.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 23 minutes past 6 already. You're watching GB News Breakfast, and it's the final week to see how you could win one of 2 amazing prize bundles in our latest giveaway, each one with a brand new iPhone 16, which I've got, and didn't get this way, by the way, by entering the competition.
I don't think we're allowed.
For it, but I'm still trying to get my head around it. It's got all sorts of things that I don't understand.
We can help you.
Extra bits. Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. And you could also win £500 in shopping vouchers and a whopping 10 grand in tax-free cash. But do hurry, because lines close on Friday.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Now, the Vatican has said Pope Francis remains in a stable condition. That's after a health setback this weekend, after he suffered even an isolated breathing crisis. You're watching live pictures from Vatican City right now.
And they also said in their statement that Pope Francis is receiving alternating treatments to help him breathe as he continues to battle, of course, that double pneumonia. But they did add that he remains alert and oriented. He was admitted to the hospital, of course, on the 14th of February, so it's a long time now, with a severe respiratory infection, which, of course, triggered other complications. He is 88, of course, so his health is going to be closely monitored and pretty fragile. We're joined now by the journalist and Catholic commentator, Caroline Farrow. A very good morning to Caroline. He is 88, as I said, so I guess at his age, and given that he has had lung problems in the past, it's not really surprising that his health goes up and down, but he seems to be holding strong.
Yes, he does. And it's interesting, the Vatican are now giving press briefings twice a day. And I think that's because they recognise, the whole of the Catholic faithful are concerned. He's seen as a father figure, he's our, leader. So people are naturally very concerned. And so they're giving 2 health updates a day. And some of them are sort of a little bit meaningless in that they say, well, he's had a restful night. I mean, I think what's interesting is that they are saying that he's staying alert. They said yesterday that he'd had a peaceful night. He'd maybe improved slightly. He'd had no more episodes. He's actually feeding himself independently, which is a good sign. He's, having coffee. He's reading the papers. He's praying. And I think part of this is because the Pope said in 2022 that shortly after he was elected, he wrote a letter announcing his resignation in case he should ever become incapacitated through ill health. So I wonder if the Vatican is trying to let us know that he's not 100% at death's door in order to quell any rumours of resignation.
Well, Caroline, of course, this is the 3rd week Pope Francis will be missing Sunday prayers. And next week, of course, we've got Ash Wednesday coming up, a very important day in the Catholic and Christian calendar. So do you think the Vatican behind the scenes is having to plan for having to celebrate these occasions while the Pope is still in hospital.
Oh, yes, completely. And I think that part of the reason for this update is because, as you said, he won't be leading the Angelus today, which is for the third week running, which, as you know, as you said, is the traditional Sunday blessing in St. Peter's Square. And he won't be leading the prayers for Ash Wednesday for the second time. So the last time he didn't lead or participate in Ash Wednesday was when he had knee problems in 2022. And, obviously with the Pope not being there for Ash Wednesday, which is, the start of Lent, and Easter is in the run up to Easter, are the most important Christian festival, will raise questions. So I think, as you say, they're having to plan for the fact that he's not going to be there. But also, I think they want to get on top of, the rumour mill, really. And because we know we live in a 24/7 information age, and, when there's a vacuum of information, as we saw with the Princess of Wales last year, there are all kinds of outrageous rumours swelling when she didn't, or circulating even when she hadn't announced that she had cancer and, was sort of out of service. So I think part of this is the Vatican sort of trying to take control of the information and quell the rumours, while at the same time letting Catholics know what's happening in order that they can be informed and, we can pray for our Pope.
Absolutely, but not just pray for him. I imagine an awful lot of Catholics, probably all over the globe, are wondering whether they should be travelling to Rome at the moment and sort of, paying tribute or just standing there before the Vatican. That a lot of Catholics will be worried, won't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was very telling on Friday. One of our parishioners rang up and said, "Oh, Caroline, have you heard? Have you heard what?" I said, "Yes. I'm on social media. I know the situation." So yes, I think a lot of Catholics are very worried. There are we can see Catholics and of course probably mainly Italians, but of Catholics go to Rome all year round, and so we can see these daily evening gatherings that we're seeing in St. Peter's Square, where everyone's coming together and praying the Rosary. And as you say, Anne, I think if the worst were to happen, Catholics, you would see, Catholics from all over the place, booking tickets and going to Rome. But, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, no one wants to be a harbinger of doom, but I think at the same time, we need to be realistic. As you said, the Pope is 88 years old. He's coming up for 89. He's got double pneumonia, and of course, he's got part of one of his lungs missing. So, I think if it was one of our elderly relatives in hospital, we would ourselves, be thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen? And perhaps I think we need to be realistic, as the Vatican themselves are being realistic. They're giving all these updates. And I think it's partly to reassure the faithful, to say, he's not in any pain and, he is alert and, things seem to be fine for now. But they're being reserved about the overall outlook because, as you say, it's his age. We generally don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's unlikely that we're going to say, I may end up eating my words, who knows, but I think this is all about trying to quell speculation about whether or not there'll be a resignation.
OK, journalist and Catholic commentator Caroline Farrow, thank you very much for joining us. And we should just say we're expecting an update from the Vatican in around an hour's time.
Yeah. There's a lot of people are already commenting on the fact that farmers are going to be restricted in the number of tractors they can bring in to London, I suppose, for the Shrove Tuesday. What are they calling it? The pancake demonstration.
Yes. There's amazing pictures of all these tractors lined up on Whitehall. It's quite the sight. We've been covering it extensively on GB News.
I thought that was magnificent, and it's almost a shame that they should be restricted in the number of tractors they can bring in.
Exactly.
If you're going to make a protest, you've got to be able to make a protest, and they are the farmers.
I would like to know the Metropolitan Police's reasoning for getting rid or not allowing these tractors in. Is it because it's causing too much traffic around the rest of London,
and
or is it something else?
Are they going to make arrests?
Yes.
Any tractor farmers who bring in tractors that haven't already been sanctioned? I mean, I don't know. That will be very ugly if that happens.
Yes, it certainly will. But still to come, horror at the FA Cup, because Aidan McGee it will be here with all the latest. That's next on GB News.
It's It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
So many people I know this applies to. We are terrified of driving in that because you're literally getting blinded now. What's going on here?
You are. I'm going to be a little bit contentious, though, and say that bright headlights have actually come about in order to make roads safer. Because if, like me, you've had experience of driving older cars, you'll know just how appalling the older style headlights can be. And in fact, you can't actually see very clearly the road ahead. So the new xenon and LED headlight technology actually stemmed from a racing background when cars were racing at night in order to make the roads brighter. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a problem for drivers, but I do sort of think that, this possibly could be part of the whole culture of people liking to have something to complain about. And they kind of need to learn, and I think this really should be part of the driving test. You need to learn how to drive at night and not to look directly into the headlights that are coming towards you.
But the RSC survey also shows, Amanda, that it suggests that there's been at least 200 road accidents which could be directly attributed to people being dazzled by the light. So that can't be good.
No, exactly. And I mean, I'm not belittling the accidents, and I'm certainly not belittling the people who have problems, particularly things like cataracts, which can really be a problem for nighttime driving. And it is a really serious problem when it comes to safety, admittedly. But again, I just feel that, bright headlights actually essentially make the road safer. We've got far more people travelling on the roads these days than we've ever had at any point in history. And so by virtue of the fact, we are going to see these numbers rising because, of course, there are going to be more people who are going to be dazzled by the headlights.
The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Lots of you have been getting in touch on the upcoming meeting, European summits, which the Prime Minister is hosting in London. Lee says, I agree with Donald Trump that the world can't keep giving money to Ukraine to fight a war that could be ended peacefully.
Yes, but how would it be ended? I think that's the... And Michael says, Britain should stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, especially in the light of the atrocities committed by Putin against Ukraine. See, it totally divides people, I think, this one.
It really does. Kevin agrees with Lee, actually, and says, I think Trump has played a blinder. He has managed to mobilise the European leaders to get together to agree a deal where they all up in their defence budgets.
See, that's what I find fascinating. Was it a strategy all along? Quite possibly, but
But a deal on whose terms? Because what you don't want to do is to appease Putin, who ultimately was the one who invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, but that's not what Donald Trump would say.
No, he wouldn't. So I don't think he said that.
It really divides people. As you were saying, weren't you, Aidan? Aidan's joined us, by the way, for the spot. But you were saying that you were in the pub and listening to people's reactions to Keir Starmer welcoming President Zelensky outside Downing Street. And there were a lot of people who just went silent. They didn't want to know.
Didn't. Well, just one guy just went like that.
Gosh.
I mean, he may have suspected what I was going to say, but he didn't want to talk about it. Neither did his wife. He made it clear we moved on to other stuff.
It's a controversial subject.
Yes, hugely. I mean, this is in, this was in Shepherd's Bush, so quite a cosmopolitan area of London. You would get a range of views, and the football fans coming on the Saturday. It could be any manner of opinion in there, but nobody wanted to talk about it, and I just found that quite surprising. And it's not often actually that politics makes it into pub conversations. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yesterday, off limits.
Well, I tell you what. Tell us about what happened in the football yesterday.
Well, this most quintessentially British of competitions, the FA Cup was overrun and overtaken effectively by wanton violence. You know, especially if you listen to the Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish. Now, Crystal Palace hosted Millwall, their local rivals, yesterday. They don't play very often because they're in different divisions.
Crystal Palace v Millwall.
Millwall, yeah, at Selhurst Park. It was one of the early kickoffs, 12:15, and after 8 minutes, Jean-Philippe Mateta, the Crystal Palace striker, goes through on goal. Liam Roberts, the Millwall goalkeeper, comes out, and we can see the picture there for the benefit of our radio listeners.
Explain it.
I mean, look, can you see the foot above the player's head? So you can see Mateta, who's number 14 there. His head is tilted to the right at quite a horizontal angle there, and the bottom, like the heel of Liam Roberts' foot, has connected with the side of his head. It's left Mateta lying prostrate on the ground with a head brace. He's been taken to hospital. The overnight prognosis, from the player himself, is that he's OK. He said he's going to be back stronger than ever. He thanked everybody for his for their concern. And the goalkeeper was sent off.
So he was kicked in the head?
Yes.
Basically. Yeah.
So you see where the ball is. I mean, the ball's gone. Yeah. So he was sent off. The referee made the right decision. Now, what was unprecedented was that the Crystal Palace chairman, Steve Parish, who I know, he's the guy who used to go out with Susanna Reid.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, remember him, yeah. And so blonde-haired guy, very successful, made his money from advertising. He's been in football now since 2010. Great guy, but I've rarely seen him so emotional. And he took the unusual step of commandeering the BBC reporter, the touchline reporter, and saying, I want to go live on air now to talk about this. And he laid in to Liam Roberts, the Millwall goalkeeper. So I've just looked up this guy, and I've realised he's 30 years old. He's not a kid. He should know better. This is the worst tackle I have ever seen.
Well, it was the most unbelievable footage.
Yes.
It's because the tackle was so high. There was no way that was accidental, surely.
Well, I don't know. Look, these things happen in football. There's emotion running high. I mean, you know, this is a local derby as well. Apart from anything else, it's spoiled the time. Millwall travelled there in great numbers, hopeful of causing an upset. When you lose your goalkeeper after 8 minutes, and so, OK, you replace him with... You take an outfield player off and bring on a substitute goalkeeper, but you're still numerically at disadvantage.
Yes.
You're against a Premier League team away from home, as Crystal Palace are, you're really up against it. They've actually made quite a good fist of it by only losing 3-1, but it's spoilt everybody's day. And, you know, there are people talking for lengthy bans on for Liam Roberts. Look, Liam Roberts doesn't have any kind of prior form, if you like, for any of these kind of dangerous tackles. But yesterday, yes, it was difficult, and people are saying, I mean, I haven't seen a worse tackle that since 1982 in the FA Cup.
Did he go live on air and have his say?
He went live on air and had his say. Now, Millwall fans say...
What did he say?
Well, no, he just said he should be ashamed of himself and that he needs to take a long, hard look at himself. And he shouldn't... Players have a duty of care to... Even if they're on the opposite team, they have a duty of care to look after their opponents because they are fellow professionals.
Yes.
OK? So it's no different to Cameron being in the Royal Scrum and getting into a scrap with somebody who works for a different channel. It's the same. They may be on...
Does he get that?
Well, it never happens to me.
They may be on different sides, but they are part of the same industry and they have a duty of care to protect each other. That's Parish's point, and I think a lot of people would agree with him. Millwall fans are up in arms are saying, well, how come this Crystal Palace chairman was afforded that privilege of being able to spout off on the BBC? Never happens to us. So, you know, there are two sides to it, but he was also... One of the things Parish said was, I can't believe the referee actually went to VAR to check that this was definitely a red card. What did he do that for? It was obvious to everybody in the stadium that it should have been off.
And has Liam Roberts said anything about the incident?
No, not at the moment. I think he'll say something today. He'll be carefully guarded. Millwall will get round him and say, look, you know, let's make the right statement here. I'm sure he'll have gone into the dressing room and apologised to the Crystal Palace team, but we'll get more on that today. And we should get an update on Mateta as well, but the early prognosis is that he's OK.
OK. Well, we've got lots more to talk about later on in the programme then. Indeed. Yeah. OK, Aidan, thanks very much indeed. Do stay with us, because still to come, why do the Met Police want to make scenes like this a thing of the past at farmers' protests? We'll be talking about that and more next with our paper reviewers. First of all, though, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, if you're heading towards Spain and the Canaries over the coming days, there will be some rain and potentially some strong winds around at times, but conditions will improve here as the week goes on. For parts of central Med, generally a fine start to the week here, maybe a few showers around, and for eastern areas, certainly temperatures are beginning to climb after a cold few days. And further west, actually, sunshine by the middle part of the week for Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast. This morning, Cameron's here with me. A lot of people have been in touch saying, where the heck is Stephen? It's his birthday.
Happy birthday,
I
Stephen.
think we can allow him the weekend off for his birthday.
Yeah, so you got me instead. Sorry about that.
Which is lovely.
Good. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages, though, all kind of on the same theme. The Daily Mail leads with Stop the State's Visits for the bully Trump, bully in quotation marks, as Sir Keir Starmer visits President Zelensky with open arms.
The Times, the Sunday Times, reports the Chancellor unlocking billions for Kyiv and UK defence as the Prime Minister warns we are at a turning point in the conflict.
The Telegraph leads with You are very welcome to Number 10 as the Prime Minister reassures Zelensky during his visit to Downing Street.
The Mirror reports we've got your back as the Prime Minister, that's what he said, offers full support to Ukraine.
And the Daily Star leads with they're off to Benidorm as racing fans save cash by watching the races in Spain. Something completely different to all the others.
It's probably a very good idea, actually, to watch it on the telly from a beach in Spain.
Yes.
Anyway, joining us to go through what's inside the newspapers, broadcaster and activist Lewis Oakley and social campaigner Winston Davis. Right, morning to both of you.
Morning.
Lewis, let's start with, yes, all of the front pages, really, but you're looking particularly at the Sunday Telegraph. You are very welcome to Number 10, says Keir Starmer to President Zelensky.
Yep, so this is Zelensky coming to visit, and I think nice quote here from the Prime Minister. As you've heard from the cheers outside, you have the full backing of the United Kingdom, and we stand with you and with Ukraine as long as it might take, which is lovely and true. But I do think there is a bit of a sea change here. It is time to be honest about what it's going to take to sort of end this situation. You know, he can come over here and hug Keir Starmer as much as he wants. He does need the backing of the Americans. I mean, NATO's pretty much told him that much. And like it or not, I do think now is the time that we have to be realistic, you know, and when this war does come to an end, it's going to feel uncomfortable, it's going to feel unjust, especially after how hard they fought. To have to give up territory is not going to make anyone happy, I think.
Do you also, I mean, I was surprised in a way that Keir Starmer said you have the backing of all the people in the United Kingdom, because it's very clear that not everybody agrees.
Well, this is true, and I think, you know...
I mean, lots of people getting in touch right now saying he hasn't got, you know, I haven't got his back.
If you're on Trump's side.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump, the thing that happened with Trump the other day was very interesting, and I actually went back last night and watched the full sort of 45, 50 minutes. It's
excruciating to watch it now, isn't it?
It is, especially when you know what's about to happen, how it's going to end. And I just felt that they were... I think the worst thing that happened, they should have had a conversation before they went out in front of the press. But I think you kind of see, you know, Zelensky starts saying, but we can't trust the Russians. We've had pieces of paper signed before, and Trump's sort of getting more and more annoyed that it's like, yes, but once I sign the piece of paper, it's different. And you sort of get both men's points of view. You know, Zelensky is saying, look, you're the fourth or fifth president I've dealt with. You're going to be gone in 4 years. Like, I can't just be like, oh, Trump did it, so that's it, that's the end of the deal. And obviously Trump's saying, look, I've been elected on cutting money that we're spending. We've spent so much money on this, and it's a 3-year stalemate. Something's got to give. So you know, it's a tough situation, as these things always are.
Winston, the Prime Minister's in a bit of a tricky position, trying to be this bridge between the United States and Europe, of course showing huge support for President Zelensky following the spats with Trump. But of course, he can't completely slam what President Trump did on Friday, because of course that's going to ruin the relationship between Britain and the US.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I too watched it last night, the full thing, just to get a proper picture of it. And actually, I think like the latter part of it where they tore into him, I felt that was definitely not right, and it's not how you treat someone who's in a lower position to you. However, despite what we think of Trump, I think that his strength and understanding deals, and he kept saying deal, 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 because there is a deal to be had and deal to be done. And actually, when you talk about Starmer, he's not a deal maker necessarily. Yeah, he's a law keeper. He understands the CPS and how the criminal justice system works. But in terms of understanding people, you know, he said about, oh, you know, well, with Putin, you know, what bad things are you going to say about Putin? It's like, how can I say a load of bad things about Putin and then pick the phone up to him and try to do a deal with him? You know, and actually, I think that, you know, Starmer's not in a position, we're not in a position to be calling the shots because we can't get it done.
Starmer's in a very interesting position at the moment because he was on the phone straight away to Trump and Zelensky, and he was again yesterday, apparently. He's been putting in a lot of phone calls.
Well, the Times is reporting that he tried to get President Zelensky back into the White House on Friday night following that spat, but so Trump's aides were saying we're not having him back until temperatures have cooled.
I think Keir Starmer needs to be a little bit cautious. The meeting with Trump went well, but the two men fundamentally do not agree on a lot of things. So I think it's great that for the public appearances, they seem aligned and stuff, but I think he would be unwise to push his power too far. Because Trump will bite.
It'll be, I mean, the summit meeting with the European leaders and Zelensky, of course, is around midday, and that will be very interesting to see how that goes and what statements are made afterwards. Winston, take us on to another fascinating story in the Daily Mail about the man who the MP, Mike Amesbury, felled.
Yeah,
the punch.
Yeah, so
several punches.
So just for anyone who's not aware of it, Mike Amesbury was convicted of assaulting this man. He punched him in the face after a 2 a.m. disagreement outside a minicab station, and he got sentenced to 10 weeks in prison. That was reduced to a suspended sentence earlier this week after spending 3 days in jail. And the guy's come out and having his say basically about it. He's basically saying he could have killed me. And he's right. You know, there's many times where people have punched someone once, they fell down, bashed their head, and they've died. But he didn't. He's alive. He's telling this story. And actually, when I read into it, he says that they don't know each other. They knew each other. Their children went to the same school. They don't know each other apart from to say hello. But he took it upon himself at 2 a.m. in the morning to walk up to him and say to him, what's going on with this closure to this bridge or something? And he took offence to it. I look at the story and wonder, I don't even think he should have even been in prison in the first place or even been sentenced to prison. Personally, I think it's a sentencing guidelines conversation.
He didn't just punch him once, he then followed it through.
I could not disagree more. This is outrageous.
Yeah.
He is an MP. They're supposed to hold higher standards. I would say you're an MP, you're responsible for the law. You have to have higher standards. And a lot of people online, the tweets I was reading, saying, look, we've got people in jail for... tweets. And this is an MP that's thrown not just one punch,
Lewis,
but five.
That's fine, Lewis, right? But we look at people like Hugh Edwards, should be in prison. We look at what happened during the lockdown. We look at the people that were going dancing in Parliament, that were having parties while we were watching our loved ones die and couldn't go to their hospitals. We were looking at millions and millions of pounds of deals that were done dodgily for PPE contracts.
But
These things should be...
But just because they weren't followed through, maybe, in your view, doesn't mean that Mike Ainsbury shouldn't have gone to prison.
But I'm saying, you look at the equivalence of it, it's like, OK, I get it, he's punched a guy, he should have done it, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. However, when I look at it on other crimes, I'm like... if you're going to put one person in prison, put them all in prison.
But I totally agree. There are a lot of people that should be in prison that aren't. But let's meet in the middle. He should not be an MP. Look at Andrew Gwynn, who after his WhatsApp surface, he had to go. I'm sorry, you at least have to step down as an MP. If we're not going to put you in prison, you at least need to be fired from your MP role.
And is it 10% of constituents of Mike Ainsbury that have to sign a recall petition for him?
10% sign it, 10% sign it, they'll get a trigger to get a recall.
It should be common sense.
But that could be 6 weeks down the line.
How's that going? Yeah, I wonder. Right, we'll talk more when you come back. I particularly want to talk about whether the police in London are going to even arrest farmers who bring their tractors, their unwanted tractors, in on Tuesday. We'll discuss that. Right now, let's find out what the weather is doing where you are as you're waking up. Here's Craig Snell.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good morning. Is it crunch time for Ukraine as European leaders gather today in London?
President Zelensky receives a warm welcome from Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street.
As the UK announces over £2 billion worth of funding for Ukraine.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
But it follows what's been described as a catastrophic meeting at the White House on Friday between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. But can the US and Ukraine mend their relationship? And what does this all mean for the future of NATO?
And of course, then there's the matter of President Trump's second state visit. Should it be recalled now? President Zelensky is going to meet the King later this afternoon in Sandringham.
Rail fares to rise in England and Wales from today. Find out later how much more you could be spending on train travel.
And police say they're going to crack down on farmers at Tuesday's protest because they're being told to leave their tractors at home.
And British Music's Night of Nights, the Brit Awards, Charlie XCX, Sam Fender and Stormzy were the big winners, and celebs made a splash on the red carpet.
And then we're off to Hollywood because preparations are getting underway for the 97th Academy Awards. I wonder if your favourite film has been nominated. Do you even know the names of the films that have been nominated? Well, I never do. Get in touch to let us know.
And I'm looking forward to this one. A hero firefighter who attended the Grenfell Tower fire retires after 12 years of service. This is a dog, by the way. We are meeting Sherlock, who's a working Cocker Spaniel and who's been working for the London Fire Brigade.
It was an afternoon of on-pitch flashpoints during the FA Cup fifth round, with disciplinary controversies overshadowing the ties at Crystal Palace, Bournemouth and Preston. And we'll find out how Rugby League Las Vegas played out in Sin City.
Good morning. The sun will once again be shining for some of us. Find out where with me a little later on.
It's just gone at 7:02. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, I wonder if you're even out of bed as you watch us this morning. Maybe you're really enjoying a nice Sunday morning lie-in. And did you know, according to scientists, it's really good for you to have a lie-in on a Sunday morning. People who spend up to 2 hours longer in bed at the weekend may halve their risk of depression. This is according to some big study or other, particularly for men and women who are aged between 40 and 60, who may not get enough sleep, you see, during the week. Apparently, it's very, very good for your work-life balance and for your mental health.
I see.
To stay under the duvet this morning.
So have we failed in our health kick this morning, Anne? Because I got up at 3 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
What time did you get up?
2:15.
2:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great lie-in, though, is it, for a Sunday?
It's not, but I tell you what, a lie-in is lovely. Do you like a lie-in?
I do, yeah. I'm not a morning person, you see. I've had to make myself a morning person. My dad said to me, you're going to have to... He said, I was the same as you, Aidan. Bear in mind, my dad would be 91 now, so he kind of started working back in the 1950s, and he said he wasn't a morning person, but he said he realised he had to make himself a morning person if he wanted to earn a living and actually eat every day.
It was the same with me. My first day ever on breakfast television was a Monday morning, and I felt so sick and wobbly and dizzy and everything. I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But you have to make yourself.
You do. I spent some time with a sleep coach in my previous role. I took him down to see a footballer down in Bournemouth, funnily enough, and he was telling me, he wrote a book simply called Sleep. He advised a lot of the London 2012 Team GB lot. He's advised football clubs, done consultations at Man United, etc. And so if you remember this, some of the athletes were walking around the Olympic Village in 2012 with bags on their shoulders. That was their sleep kit provided by this gentleman. And he was talking about the myth of 8 hours sleep. It doesn't really exist. He said Margaret Thatcher ran the country on 4 hours sleep.
Yes, that's right.
For many, many years. It depends what suits the individual. And he said this whole thing about sleeping from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. He said, well, what happens when I go and consult for Barcelona and Real Madrid? All their staff and their players have siestas in the middle of the day. So it's about what suits you. Sometimes 4 hours can be enough. Sometimes you might need 10.
I think you can train yourself to be a morning person, though. I mean, I used to hate waking up very early to go to the gym, for example, but now if you do it enough times, then your body clock just changes.
Adapts it. So your circadian rhythm or something like that.
Yes, well, absolutely. I'm sure, and not everybody's circadian rhythm is going to be the same anyway. but quite. I mean, and then I spent most of my career on breakfast television, so I'm used to getting up early in the morning.
And do you feel energised at this time in the morning?
Well, yeah, I suppose I do. Yeah.
I hit a wall though later in the day. Do you?
Yes, I do when I do this show.
Wait, but then you've got to know, you've got to build it in. Anyway, the point is, are you watching us under the duvet? You're so lucky if you are. But apparently, not only are you lucky, it's good for your health.
Yes, so well done.
Happy Sunday duvet day. Now, I'll tell you who won't be. Even though Keir Starmer said when he took office that he was always going to have his Friday afternoons, he wouldn't work. And can you imagine? He must be up early this morning, being briefed as we speak, because he's got a very big meeting today. Zelensky as well, and all of the other European leaders who are gathering in London for that special defence summit where they are going to talk real business.
Yes, President Zelensky arrived in London yesterday, straight from what's been described as that catastrophic meeting with President Trump at the White House. Quite the contrast yesterday.
Now, if you're seeing pictures here on the telly from under your duvet, it's the two men greeting each other outside Downing Street. And then afterwards, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated his and the UK's continuing support for Ukraine.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, following the pair's meeting, Chancellor Rachel Reeves signed a £2.26 billion loan agreement with Ukraine to bolster its military capabilities.
And then later today, as I was saying, following the European Leaders Summit, President Zelensky is then going to head to Sandringham to meet King Charles.
Well, we're joined now by the political commentator Tim Scott. Tim, what did you make of the meeting between Zelensky and the Prime Minister yesterday in Downing Street, particularly compared to what happened in the Oval Office just 24 hours previously.
Yes, Cameron, and good to be back on. Thank you. Yes, I think this will be great for Starmer's poll ratings. It won't do him any harm at all. And I think there's a little bit of an implied rebuke to Trump there with what he's done. I mean, however you feel about the meeting and how it went, it was a bit of a disaster, not least for Ukraine. But I think Starmer has, whatever you think of Starmer's premiership so far, this is a chance for him to look statesmanlike, to look leaderly, and I think Starmer's played this quite well.
It's been his best week since he became Prime Minister.
I think it has, Anne, and I'm wondering if he might get a little bit of a poll bounce during the week. He certainly needs it.
Well, there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there? But I suppose, will it translate into deals and actions? What do you think we're going to get out of this European meeting with all the leaders in London today? Will there be some kind of statement? Are you predicting some kind of agreements with Europe?
Yeah, I think we're heading in that direction. As you say, Cameron, it's a European meeting, not an EU meeting. And Canada, NATO members attending as well. Mark Rutte, the former Dutch Premier and Secretary-General of NATO, is attending. New NATO members, Sweden and Finland, are attending. Obviously, they're going to try to come to some kind of agreement. We'll have to see what they release. We might not get the full details until the EU meeting on Thursday, but clearly we can no longer take the big American commitment to Europe for granted. I think it's unlikely they would completely pull out. But it's been obvious since Trump's first presidency, let alone now, that patience, I was just in Washington last week, patience is running out in Washington for USA paying 2/3 of the NATO budget.
And you can understand that?
Yes, I think that's completely understandable.
I'm surprised they put up with it this long,
yes, actually, I agree with you, Anne. I think Europe has had it quite good for decades, where we've paid minimal amounts to defence.
Wouldn't you even load it on even more than that? Haven't we become complacent?
I think we have. And I think we've taken peace and security for granted for decades, and that's something you can never take and for granted. And since the end of the Cold War, certainly Britain, we've taken peace dividend after peace dividend. We've carved lumps out of our military. The army's never been smaller. We've never had less tanks, less planes, less ships. And I think Europe for too long, including Britain, has had it easy.
That's interesting you say that, because when you think about it, I mean, there was Trump demanding, well, certainly J.D. Vance was demanding that Zelensky says thank you.
Yes.
Maybe we should be saying thank you a bit more often to the States.
Well, sometimes we're a bit awkward. I mean, people here love to knock Trump whilst living under the security protection umbrella that the USA has provided us with for decades. And as I said, I was in Washington at the CPAC conference. The mood there is very much that they're a bit fed up with paying billions to Ukraine for a war that's bogged down in a stalemate, and they're fed up with paying 2/3 of the NATO budget. The two are linked, of course. The two issues are linked. So patience is running out in Washington.
OK, political commentator Tim Scott, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, let's find another point of view and talk to former member of the European Parliament, David Campbell-Bannerman, who joins us now. Morning, David. What's your view on this? I mean, has Europe been complacent? Is it about time we all step up? Maybe say thank you even to Donald Trump and the United States for what they've done so far?
Yes. Well, I mean, we don't have an army now. We have two corps. That's our numbers are so small, as Tim's rightly said. No, I think it's a wake-up call for Europe to spend more on defence, and I think the defence summit today will be more about that than the row between Zelensky and Trump. But they're absolutely right to call on Europe to do more. I don't think, by the way, I don't want all this exaggeration, and the EU is flapping around. I don't see Trump. Trump has not said he's leaving NATO or going to abandon NATO. He's just said, you guys pay up and let's have peace in Ukraine and, peace in capitals, as he often puts in his tweets.
David, the British government has committed to increasing defence spending by 2.5% of GDP by April 2027. Is that enough, or do you think we need to go further?
I think we do need to go further. It's 0.2% increase. Well, it's helpful. I mean, it is billions, Remember, our GDP, by the way, our economy is 20% larger than Russia's. So if we actually spend more on defense, we'll really notice it. We can really step up to this. I think we should go for the target. The Americans spend about 3.5% of their GDP. Obviously, we won't match that in exact terms, but the percentage we can match, and that's about right now. And this sort of, we've got a lot of threats out there, including China, etc. So we've got to step up. And I think the point is that, this defense money does go round and round as well. I mean, if you do spend on defense, it comes back through manufacturing, through taxes, through greater employment, high-skilled jobs. It's a good thing to spend money on.
Yes, but isn't it very difficult for Keir Starmer at the moment? Because, it's an unusual thing for a Labour Prime Minister to be spending more on defence and also standing alongside and maybe chivying on other European leaders. Is he going to lose some of his own fan base?
Well, actually, as a Brexiteer, I'm delighted in the fact that this is Britain showing its influence. We were told after Brexit, we wouldn't have any influence in the world. And here's the British Prime Minister being this bridge between the United States and Europe. And the summit is in London. Zelensky is here. He came yesterday. So, Britain is exerting its influence thanks to Brexit. We're not in lockstep with, you've got the head of the EU, the Foreign Affairs spokesman, Callas, saying we've got to fight on with Russia. And it's like, that's incredibly worrying. They'd rather have thousands die for the good of the superstate, the EU superstate. So I think Starmer's in a good position, and maybe he's actually beginning to enjoy Brexit, the benefits of Brexit.
Can I ask you what you made of the Chancellor's announcement yesterday that she signed a loan agreement worth £2.26 billion with her Ukrainian counterpart to pay for further military support using frozen Russian assets?
Yes, well, obviously, extra spending is welcome. A senior lawyer on our WhatsApp group was saying that this could be illegal because, that there's no actual legal provision to take the money. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that is an interesting point, how legal is it? I think the principle of using confiscated Russian money to fund defense, whether for Ukraine or for ourselves, is a good one, because unfortunately, this is an unprovoked war from Russia. Zelensky, I think, has been very brave. The Ukrainian people are very brave. But I think it's time now. My worry is that Ukraine could collapse. There's a BBC reporting that 100,000 soldiers are being prosecuted for not fighting in Ukraine. And, they're putting older and older people into the front line. And they're under enormous pressure. And I think now is the time to do a deal. They have won this. They've kept Russia out, inflicted huge casualties. They're not in, but it could go very wrong very quickly if they don't do an honourable peace deal now.
Yes, certainly something needs to be done fast, doesn't it? Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you this morning. Get back under the duvet. Apparently, it's very, very good for you on a Sunday morning.
Thank you very much.
Right, let's move on to our poll of the day. And today we are asking a pretty fundamental question. What do you think, though? Do you agree with the Prime Minister that Britain stands with Ukraine for as long as it takes? Was he speaking for you when he said that? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day. Stay tuned, because the final result will be in Nanette Akwe's show. And if you want to know any more about our polling, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Right, so let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom. And train fares in England and Wales will rise by around 4.6% from today. Rail cards are also set to rise, costing consumers hundreds of pounds more a year. And we went out yesterday to ask whether you think our transport system is good value.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty good value for what I do every day.
Value for money, wow. With the current service, I would say not. If the increase actually goes on improving the service, is fine. But if it goes to the shareholders, that's another crazy thing. Why are the trains not in completely public ownership?
Israel has agreed to a US proposal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza. The first phase of the ceasefire was actually due to expire today. But according to the US proposal, the ceasefire will now cover the Ramadan and Passover periods.
The Metropolitan Police have said farmers could be arrested if they drive their tractors at a march in central London scheduled for Tuesday next week. Organisers have said the so-called Pancake Day rally is aimed to be bigger and better than the previous two demonstrations as they campaign against changes to inheritance tax rules. But now conditions have been imposed under the Public Order Act, preventing demonstrators from bringing tractors other than a limited number already agreed by the organisers.
A rather lovely posting from Christopher. Morning, Christopher. Just in case you're finding the news, I don't know, terribly upsetting or depressing, or young people who are depressed by what seems to be going wrong in the world at the moment, he says, can I encourage everyone? I'm 69 and I've seen governments come and go. I remember when the pound was worth 50p under the Wilson government, but eventually things turned around, suddenly and unexpectedly. Have hope, all will be well.
That is a lovely message, actually.
And it's true, you know, the older you get, the more you think, I've seen all this before.
Yeah, and I think it is difficult sometimes when it is a day like today and a lot of the news is quite depressing. But there's always light in the world, every cloud has a silver lining, and hopefully we'll have some fun perhaps in the paper review a little bit later as well. It won't all be depressing, don't worry.
Right, let's find out about the weather and see if that's a sign of spring. Here's Craig Snell.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It is just coming up to 7:20. You're watching GB News Breakfast. It's the final week now of our Great British giveaway. One of two amazing prize bundles in our latest giveaway. Each one has a brand new iPhone 16, like Anne, although she hasn't won us on the giveaway.
I haven't understood it yet.
No, not yet. We'll give her a lesson later. £500 in shopping vouchers as well, and a whopping £10,000 in tax-free cash. But hurry, because lines close on Friday.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of two big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have two prize bundles that have to be won. There's two lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Do stay with us, because in a moment we're going to be talking about that Brit Awards thing last night. We'll find out what happened and who won. We'll also be looking forward to the Oscars, which are tonight, with Stephanie Tetchy, who'll know all the latest news and views about possibly what happened to the film actor Gene Hackman as well. There's lots to talk about, so do stay with us. Stephanie will be here in just a moment.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm here in M. Manzi's, which is now the oldest surviving pie and eel shop in London. It's been open since 1892, and as you said in the intro there, it's it's really sort of a dying breed. One of the sister sites of this shop, the distant relative, owned one of their own other shops in Deptford, and that closed on Saturday for the very last time. That had been open for over 100 years. So you clearly see that there's a declining, not necessarily a declining interest, that's the wrong way of putting it, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. This is a staple of the East End, and it's now gone from about 300 shops in the Victorian times to under 40 now, and it's declining further and further. Now, also, a couple of months ago, I was in Basildon talking about a similar story with Richard Holden, trying to create a protected status for pie and mash to prevent sort of copycats from stealing the recipe and making it less authentic. So that is ongoing. There's clearly interest in it, and tourists enjoy coming in here. Hopefully, I'll get one of my own pies shortly and have another taste. But it would be a shame to see this go. It's not just about the pie and the taste and the flavour, which is fantastic. It's also about history and community. A lot of people come in here as regulars, so we're just shining a light on a crucial part of London's historic economy. It's a bit of good fun, and it certainly tastes very good as well. Demographics have changed, yeah, and actually a lot of the ownership, the people who would run these shops traditionally over the last few decades are moving out towards the west, they're moving towards Kent, they're moving towards Sussex. So there are demographic changes, and no doubt that is influencing it as well. And as I say, it's important to do stories like this just to remind people of London's history and why it's important to support these local businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Anne, did you have a brat summer?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, so Brat Summer, Charlie XCX, who won a number of Brit Awards last night, had this album out in the summer called Brat, and it became this massive social media sensation. Stephanie Tetchy's here, knows what I'm talking about.
Do you know what you're talking about, all things Brat? It's basically a woman who's very messy, very dishevelled, so it celebrates being messy and not a refined character, quite bratty. Yeah. And it came in a nice shade of green, her album cover, similar to what you're wearing today, Anne.
Oh.
So you look quite bratty.
Oh, thank you.
That's a compliment. That's a compliment, according to Gen Z, Gen Z.
She did well last night.
She did. She picked up 5 awards: Best Album, Artist of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Dance Act, and earlier on in this week, she was announced for the Best Songwriting as well. You know, for Charlie XCX, it hasn't been an overnight success for her. She got signed to her record label when she was 14. This album was her 7th album, so, you know, it's kind of long overdue, but in a sense, she did become a cultural phenomenon last year when she did come out with Brat. So, I do think it was well-deserved for her.
Why is she called XCX?
It's like, I think it's kind of a bit of a spin on Kisses, but she just added the C, so like Kisses, C, Charlie, X.
Okay, but she's obviously good at what she does.
Yeah, she is. She wasn't really that quite charming, I felt like, when she was picking up her awards yesterday. I felt like she was quite a bit of a brat. But, you know, it was well-deserved yesterday. There were some amazing performances as well. We had Sabrina Carpenter, who received the Global Success Award. She performed a little mashup with Rule Britannia, and she was surrounded by all these beef eaters as well, which was quite nice to see. And then we also had Jade Thirlwell from Little Mix, who also performed, but their performances were quite X-rated, I think, you know, for ITV.
I thought all that was over. There's all it's bumping and grinding.
Well, you know what they say. You know what they say. Sex sells when it comes to music, and I think there was a lot of it on stage yesterday. But as well, there was political jibes, of course. The Lovies, you know, the Brits era Lovies affair. Paloma Faith took her chance when she was on stage to say that the 77 million people who voted for Donald Trump got it wrong, basically, and that's the reason why the world's a mess. There was a lot of...
They always have to have their say.
They do.
It's always the celebrity Hollywood type.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Music and politics go hand in hand. There was a lot of bleeping out of expletives yesterday, including from Danny Dyer, who chose to call Keir Starmer something which I will not repeat as well. So that got beeped out. Yeah, it wasn't the time or the place, but one of the emotional moments of the evening was a special tribute to Liam Payne. Of course, with One Direction, he picked up 7 Brit Awards, so that was quite a kind of an emotional ending to the Brit Awards.
Talking of Lovies, who may say the wrong thing on it is the Oscars.
It is the 97th one, and they're all going to be heading into Hollywood tonight, and I do think it is going to be a very eventful show. Leading the pack is Emilia Perez, which is the Netflix drama about a transgender Mexican drug lord, which is up for a staggering...
She's got about
it's just like, it ticks all the boxes. It's up for 13 nominations, but the controversy, Anne and Cameron, is the leading star is Carla Sofia Gascon, who is transgender herself. She's up for Best Actress, but she's been cancelled all award seasons due to some offensive tweets that she made in the past. So she hasn't done no red carpets, but she will turn up for this.
What happens if she wins, though? Because then she's going to have to deliver a speech having been cancelled.
Yeah, I don't think she will win. I think, you know, if these tweets didn't come in, I think she would have done. I think she would have done well. She would have been all woke, and it would have been what the Oscars wanted. But I think because this has come out, I just don't think the Academy will go for her.
What is the hotly tipped movie?
I think it's going to be The Brutalist, because I find that the Academy members, they like these hard-hitting films like we did last year with Oppenheimer. So I think it'll be a good year for Adrian Brody. I think he'll win Best Actor. But I think the Brits can do really well tonight. Obviously, we've got Conclave, which I really hope they do really well with that. And then we've got Wicked as well, which is led by Cynthia Erivo. So if she wins Best Actress, she will become an EGOT. So that means she will have an Emmy, an Oscar, a Tonys, and a Grammys. Yeah,
and she's British.
And she's British, so she's leading the way. So I do hope she does really well.
And of course, they always remember those they have lost during the year. And Gene Hackman will obviously get some sort of special tribute.
He will. His death just came 4 days before tonight's ceremony, and he's set to be honoured by his co-star Morgan Freeman.
We're seeing the two of them right now,
they starred in Unforgiven and Under Suspicion, and I think it's just very sad for Hollywood. Gene Hackman was one of those prolific actors, over 80 films that he starred in his career. Any role that he done, he really brought it to life. And
well, they still say any film that stars Gene Hackman is usually a very, very good film.
It is, and you remember...
But we still don't know how or why he died.
Well, yesterday it came out that basically they died around February 17th because that was the last time his pacemaker was working. So now they're going to be doing toxicology reports, which they say will take months to come out. But they have ruled out carbon monoxide suicide, because that was the first thing people were thinking that could have occurred. But if it wasn't that, they're not sure. Yeah. And unfortunately for his wife, Betty, who died as well, there was prescription medication bottles that were found around her body.
That they were found in separate rooms.
Yes.
He had clearly fallen by the look of it.
Yeah.
And he was 95.
He was.
But she is only 63.
Yeah.
And that she was found in another room, we think a bathroom, on the floor. A space heater had fallen as well. Yeah. And yes, pills all around her. What on earth does that mean?
They were quite a kind of reclusive couple, because his daughters have come out and said that they hadn't spoken to him in months. So I think it's going to be really hard putting together all what's happened. But it's just a very tragic ending for one of Hollywood's brightest stars.
Yeah, lots of unanswered questions, and the fact neither of them were found for 11 days is quite heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. It just goes to show, like, you know, once you're in the limelight, people know everything about you. But since 2004, he stepped away from acting due to the stress of having heart issues due to acting. So since then, he's been very much a reclusive figure.
He'd been writing, though. He did.
He loved it.
Books.
He loved novel writing. He said he could get into his own world. He said he wouldn't mind doing acting again if they could film from his house.
And a lifelong friend of Dustin Hoffman.
Yes,
the two
close.
Apparently went to drama college or something together, and they were both voted in the same year the least likely to ever succeed.
And
that bonded them together for life.
Yeah. And, you know, it is going to be an extended in memoriam today for the Oscars, because there has been several actors who've passed away over the last year. But I think for Gene Hackman, it's just very still raw.
They did say, didn't they, that it would be a low-level Oscars because of the recent
wildfires. Yeah, I don't think obviously we'll see the glitz and the glams and all the outfits today, but I think just a general mood of Los Angeles.
Talking of which, if we look at the red carpet, the Ozempic effect, which we've seen before, is going to be on display.
And diets are out, Ozempic's in. So what's going to happen? We're going to see a lot of people with fillers in their face, but looking quite bored.
Absolutely no fat at all.
That adds with the Botox.
It is. Well, you know, they know the world's watching, so they've got to look their best.
Yes. But the thinner, the better, clearly.
Never.
They'll be out-thinning each other. That'll be quite something to watch.
Well, Stephanie, you'll be back later.
I will be back with more.
Excellent.
Or more. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Right now, we're heading towards sports time. Aidan is in the wings. He'll be coming up next.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Cameron and Anne. And we've got some breaking news to bring you now from the Vatican concerning Pope Francis's health. They say in a very quick one-line statement, the night was quiet, the Pope is still resting. The night was quiet, the Pope is still resting. That is the only update we have got. Sometimes we go into further details, saying the Pope has had breakfast or something like that.
Or sitting up in his armchair, but maybe it's a bit early for that anyway.
Quite possibly. Where we know the Pope is an early riser. Of course, if we have any more details on the Pope's condition, we'll bring that straight to you.
OK, it's time for sport. Aidan is here. Morning.
Good morning to you both.
Now, Bournemouth, which I always watch nowadays, but it's made the news for all the wrong reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, let's park Steve Parish and Crystal Palace for now. We covered that in the last hour, but that wasn't the only aggro that we saw in the FA Cup yesterday. How long before we see players go ahead and start kicking dents into that wonderful trophy? Because that's what it feels like at the moment, metaphorically, at least. Because Bournemouth, let's deal with the headlines first of all, and that's that. They were taken to a 1-1 draw by Wolverhampton Wanderers at home in the FA Cup. Remember last week they lost to Wolves in the Premier League. This week it was the FA Cup 1-1, went to extra time. Bournemouth prevailed 5-4 on penalties, so you'll be pleased to know, are into the quarter-finals of the FA Cup, and they should have no inferiority complex now going through to the draw, which is going to be after the Man United-Fulham game tonight, because, I mean, I think they'll have their eyes firmly fixed on that trophy. But, as we mentioned, it wasn't without controversy. The Wolves player, Matheus Cunha, 25-year-old striker, hotly coveted by other bigger clubs, actually, but I wonder if they will take a dim view of his actions yesterday, because he was involved in a punch, a kick and a headbutt. Not just because it was the first day of the month, I should say, but but it was reflected on as a.
Well, go on, what happened?
As an assault. Well, as I say, a punch, kick, and an assault on a headbutt, an assault on Milos Kerkez, and he was sent off for that. But Kerkez, this is what's angered the Bournemouth manager. Because of the confrontation, his own player, Milos Kerkez, received a yellow card. But because he'd already received a yellow card earlier in the match, that meant that he got a red card as well. So both players were sent off. That meant they were both missing for the shootout. As I say, Bournemouth won 5-1. Not quite the histrionics we saw in the Millwall game, or Millwall Crystal Palace game earlier in the day, but nonetheless, an unsavoury incident for the FA Cup. And Bournemouth will just be pleased that they're through at this stage. Yeah. But I just wonder whether the big clubs who are looking at Matheus Cunha, the Wolves player who got sent off for his part in this incident, I would just wonder if in the summer they'll say that was indiscipline in a big game. We're going to be having big games every week, and every 3 days, in fact, if you're playing for us. Maybe that disciplinary issue will count against him, because I look at his temperament and think, are you for us? I'm not sure they will.
Well, that's the thing. Is there just a few bad apples who lash out like this?
Yes.
Or is there a cultural problem within football?
No, the fact that we see it as news on a one-off basis suggests there's not a cultural problem here. These are flashpoints. It's just sad. It was a great day for the FA Cup. In the absence of any Premier League football, it was a great day for them to showcase how good this tournament is, all the history, all the tradition going back well over 100 years, and how there are still some big clubs in it. There are still some smaller clubs in it looking to make their mark, and yet it was overshadowed by the incidents at Selhurst Park and at the Vitality Stadium. And we should mention as well when Preston played Burnley. Now, this was a player called Milutin Osmaic who scored yesterday. 2 weeks ago, he was involved in a race row with a Burnley player. They're already big rivals as it is, Preston and Burnley. And yesterday, the Burnley players refused to shake hands with this guy because they don't feel it's been dealt with by the authorities. He then goes and scores in this match, and Scott Parker, the Burnley manager, even though that his side lost, said his players were right not to shake hands with Osmaj yesterday. So again, a different kind of flashpoint, but not a good look for the FA Cup. And it's no fault of the competition, it's the players involved. They need to sort their act out.
Remember their manners,
They need to remember their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3-0 to Preston, wasn't it?
It was 3-0 to Preston, yeah, good result for them. They're into the quarterfinals as well, alongside Bournemouth. And we saw, what else did we see yesterday? Yeah, we've mentioned all 3 games, but today, Manchester City winning 3-1 against Plymouth Argyle. A Ukrainian defender called Tovalerov scored the opening goal for Man City. He's not seen his father in 3.5 years because of the war. Unfortunately, then they couldn't hold on. They lost 3-1, but nonetheless, a really good stand by them at the Etihad Stadium.
OK, but there's still plenty more to talk about next time we see you.
Yes, we do. And we've got Fulham v Man United tonight.
OK, right. Thanks very much indeed, Aidan. 7:41 still to come. We'll be looking through the newspapers.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, if you're heading towards Spain and the Canaries over the coming days, there will be some rain and potentially some strong winds around at times, but conditions will improve here as the week goes on. For parts of central Med, generally a fine start to the week here, maybe a few showers around, and for eastern areas, certainly temperatures are beginning to climb after a cold few days. And further west, actually, sunshine by the middle part of the week for Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Getting into medicine at a very early age, you had an interest when you were really, really young, didn't you?
I did. I decided to go to medicine when I was 8. And that was based on the stories my father used to tell me about my grandfather, who I never met, because my grandfather died when he was 11.
Yeah.
And he was in the military, and he was stationed up in the Himalayas, and he was a doctor in the military. And not only did he serve in the military, but he also served his patients. And he served them to the degree where he would go out and he'd take them supplies, and he'd really look after them and make sure that they were not just well, but could live and survive. And it was on a day when he was out there helping his patients. There was a storm up in the Himalayas.
Wow.
And he was out there taking blankets and clothes and food up to them. And on the way back, as he was coming down the Himalayas, there was a landslide which took his Jeep over the edge, and he perished in that. So he gave his life to his service. And it was these stories about my grandfather, what he did and how he helped people, that really inspired me to follow in his footsteps. Not necessarily to go into the military, but to go into medicine.
But he's left a wonderful legacy, because fast forward, you came to this country when you was 4, and you've studied medicine.
Yep.
And you do, we were talking earlier about DNA. You're looking at DNA, looking at people's DNA. You can do profiles on people, predict. Well, you can actually say with some accuracy where they've lived in the past, what jobs they've done, and what medically may happen to them in the future.
Yeah. And I think, over the last, we've been looking at the gene. There was a Human Genome Project last century, which finished.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 7:45. Joining us to go through what's making the news this morning, broadcaster and activist Lewis Oakley and social campaigner Winston Davis. Good morning to you both.
Lewis, the farmers have been told to leave their tractors at home, or they might get arrested.
Yeah, so this is the Metropolitan Police. Now, what they're saying is that the last protest, the roads were blocked because they brought all these tractors in, so they're bringing in this public order ahead of Tuesday's protest, if anyone's going, to basically prevent that. And what they're saying is if you haven't pre-agreed it, then you face arrest, basically. And I think, here's the thing. We've got to have order. I think we all agree, you can't just do whatever you want. There has got to be order. But I think the problem is, if you look at Just Stop Oil and how long they got away with things for, I mean, they were shutting down bridges for weeks. You had the police sort of bringing them reinforcements and dancing with them. So it feels, as keep being talked about in the media, this sort of two-tier to it. Now, you might say, no, the police have just learnt from Just Stop Oil and they're just implementing these things now, but I do think that it just sends the wrong message. And this is a hard story for me, because personally I'd be like, this is about our food. Let them do what they want, but you do have to have order, and you do have to have rules.
So just to be clear, the Metropolitan Police is not wanting them to block the roads. That's why they're banning the tractors.
Yeah, well, so they've allowed some of the tractors that are coming, but they don't want too many, because then that will block the roads.
I think, what are they going to do if they are faced with having to arrest a farmer because he's brought his tractor in? I mean, are they really prepared for the optics?
Yeah, but then it's physically, if they bring tractors, obviously huge vehicles, which prevent the fire brigade, the ambulance, the police from getting to people that might be dying, might be being killed, might have something going on. There's the balance of it. Like, yeah, there's got to be a right to freedom to protest, to say what you want to say and have your say, and as democratically and legally as you can. But to put someone's life at danger.
Well, having no food also puts people's lives at danger too. So it is. I get what you're saying. Yeah. You're totally right. People need to get to hospital. I'm not disputing that.
Was there any evidence that last time they did actually block things like that? Because they could responsibly drive their tractors in, just making sure that they, any emergency vehicle could pass them.
If they could do that, great.
Yeah.
I think just by the sheer size of them.
I know, but wasn't it wonderful to see?
It was
these enormous tractors.
And they're not doing it just for fun or for attention. This is a really serious matter. Whether or not you think they should be paying the tax or not, we are talking about food security and the trouble with making these farms profitable. It is an important issue, and I do think the government have, sort of fobbed them off as much as they can. This is why this protest is happening.
One of our viewers has just messaged in saying, since when has it been illegal to drive a tractor on the road in the UK? If that is the case, and I was a farmer, I would say, OK, I'll not take any of my farm equipment on the roads anywhere in the UK, and our food supplies will run out in days. Is that what we really want?
I suppose there's a difference between driving a tractor and parking it and blocking a road. I suppose that would be the Metropolitan Police's argument. Anyway, Winston, boys to lose out in gender pay gap, according to The Times' front page.
Yeah, there's a really interesting story here, which is not surprising. It's a report entitled "The Lost Boys," and it basically says that the earnings of young men has now fallen behind by nearly 10% the earnings of young women from the ages of, I think it's 18 to 24-year-olds. So the average young man's now earning 24 grand a year versus 26.5 for young women. But it goes on to talk about a whole host of factors that have been involved in it, from young boys being behind girls in education, the family breakdown, how more boys are getting involved in crime, and health. They're saying that obesity, 1 in 4 year 6 boys are now classified as obese.
Gosh, 24.
Yeah, 25%. And the thing is, he said, Lewis, we were talking about before, saying this is meant to be the greatest time to be alive. Yeah, especially young men are finding like existential mental health crisis, physical crisis, criminal educational crisis, and something needs to be done.
Well, there's a lot going on here, right? I mean, this is. I would read this story and say, well, this is what you get for decades of calling masculinity toxic, rather than understanding young boys. And I think the trouble is, you're seen as being sort of a bad person sometimes for making the case for boys. We know that men are the most likely to commit suicide, that's like the top cause of death between, I think it's sort of 19
18
to
and
49
30 or something,
yeah, like that. Homelessness is off the scales. Even a lot of charities that actually are there to support men. There was a big thing on it in the podcasting world last year, where actually a lot of them are having to give money to women's charities as well. And I think that this is where we really need to have a big conversation about what we want for our young boys. And let's see if there is a shift after reports like this. But I don't think that there will be. And I think when it comes to education as well, we don't teach boys in the ways that we know the psychologists say that they need to be more physical than the girls. The girls, by and large, obviously everyone's a bit different, can sit there and write for long periods of time, whereas the boys will lose interest.
Are we
have to be moving around.
Are we reaping the rewards, as it were, or the results of a generation, maybe 2 or 3 generations now, of families without fathers? Because don't boys need a role model?
Yeah, they've said that by the age of 14, half of firstborn children do not live with natural-born parents, and that was only 21% in 1970.
I mean, they've been warning about this for years.
They have.
So they're more likely to own a smartphone than have a dad in the home.
Yeah.
It's been well documented that working class boys in particular are the ones who have been left behind by society. But what can the government and society do to try and make it more equal now for the next generation of boys coming up?
I would say stop treating little boys like little girls. Understand that they have different drivers. Young boys, whether you like it or not, want status. So let's find healthy ways to give them status, whether that's getting them involved in sports, whether that's getting them on the career ladder they want to get to. Let's not tell them that these natural drivers they have are a bad thing. Let's find healthy outlets for them.
I think there's basically not enough for them to do. Would you agree?
Well, look, I mean, this goes to a much bigger conversation about what's happening. You said about a couple of generations. For the last 40-odd years, working-class communities as a whole have been demonised, disseminated, industries broken down, so the factories shutting, the coal mines shutting, so whole communities where then in family breakdown, alcohol and drug use is increasing. So therefore, in these communities, it's like then the aspirations for, you go to my generational, there should be, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they worked in that coal mine. Yes. I'm going to work in that coal mine, and those jobs aren't there anymore.
I was talking about the dearth of a male role model in the house, but often the way that you could supplement that is the community, and the workplace would give you a male role model, somebody to look up to.
It's interesting. I've been asked to write an article that I've just finished writing, which is, what role models would you suggest for young men who are now turning to people like Andrew Tate? And actually, it was really hard to find role models that I'm like, you know what? I actually think that these men are what we should be making our young boys look at. It's quite, if you look around from sports to entertainment, there aren't that many men that really are talking to young men in ways that they would understand.
We made the point earlier, Lewis, that a lot of young men and boys in school are told that kind of men are the problem, men are the oppressors, and that is going to rub off on them.
Yeah, and if people are telling you you are inherently bad, you're then not going to listen to any advice that they have. And so then that's why there's been a vacuum left, which is being filled by people like Andrew Tate. And then we have this big problem now. So I think that it needs honest people looking at it and not being scared to say we want to help young boys.
We're just about to run out of time, but this is clearly one that I think you might be interested in at home. I mean, who was your male role model if it couldn't be your dad? Was it somebody else? I mean, in the East End of London, they used to bring boxing clubs in, and it was hugely successful. Yep. So how did your family cope with that, for instance? Thank you. We'll get on with the weather now. See you the other side of the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good morning. Is it crunch time for Ukraine as European leaders gather today in London?
President Zelensky receives a warm welcome from Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street.
As the UK announces over £2 billion worth of funding for Ukraine.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is
a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, it follows what's been described as a catastrophic meeting at the White House on Friday between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. But can the US and Ukraine mend their relationship, and what does this all mean for the future of NATO?
And as calls grow for President Trump's second state visit to be recalled, President Zelensky is going to meet the King later this afternoon in Sandringham.
And rail fares to rise in England and Wales today. Find out later how much more you could be spending.
And apparently police are going to crack down on farmers at Tuesday's protest, and they're telling them to leave their tractors at home.
And British music's Night of Nights, the Brit Awards, Charlie XCX, Sam Fender and Stormzy were the big winners, and celebs made a splash on the red carpet.
And then we're off to Hollywood, because preparations are getting underway for the 97th Academy Awards, and that's tonight. And we'll be talking about the films and the stars and the Ozempic effect on the starlets on the red carpet.
And we have a special guest joining us in the studio later. A hero firefighter dog who attended the Grenfell Tower fire retires after 12 years of service. We'll be meeting Sherlock, the working Cocker Spaniel who has been working for the London Fire Brigade.
The most reckless challenge I've ever seen. That was the verdict of the Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish after his player Jean-Philippe Mateta spent the night in hospital as a result of a horror tackle from the Millwall goalkeeper Liam Roberts. More later.
Good morning. The sun will once again be shining for some of us. Find out where with me a little later on.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Ann Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. We were talking earlier about how it's actually very, very good for you to have a lie-in on a Sunday morning, if you can. So I'm asking, are you still under the duvet? Is your other half bringing you maybe a breakfast in bed, something nice like that? Angela says, I'm listening under the duvet, Anne. I always have the clock radio on before I get out of bed.
Oh, well, Ian says, I work nights from 10 o'clock until 6 in the morning, Sunday to Thursday. I'm an ex-soldier and can sleep on a washing line if needed. Well done, Ian. Mainly I sleep from 12 midday until 6 o'clock, but that can vary.
So let us know how you're getting on, and if you are treating yourself to a lie-in this morning, it is lovely to have a lie-in. Tell you who won't be having a lie-in, and that's, well, certainly Keir Starmer. He's got a big day ahead of him today. And so, of course, has President Zelensky and the other European leaders who are meeting. They're gathering in London for this special defence summit.
Yeah, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be there too. He arrived in London yesterday, straight from what has been described as a catastrophic meeting with President Trump at the White House on Friday.
Yeah, and of course we're seeing pictures at the moment of what was actually a pretty historic meeting. The way Keir Starmer walked out of Number 10 and down the road a little to meet President Zelensky as he got out of his car. And then he pledged then, when they were inside, Keir Starmer pledged the UK's continuing support for Ukraine for as long as it lasts.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, following the pair's meeting, Chancellor Rachel Reeves signed a £2.26 billion loan agreement with Ukraine to bolster its military capabilities.
And then later today, following the European Leaders' Summit, President Zelensky will head off to Sandringham to meet with King Charles.
Absolute determination to stand with you, unwavering determination, and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine.
Well, we're joined now by Shadow Minister for Defence, Mark Francois. Mark, good morning to you. What have you made of the Prime Minister's response to kind of the row in the White House, as we call it, on Friday, and how he handled Zelensky yesterday?
Well, I think it is good that the Prime Minister is hosting President Zelensky and other European leaders to discuss where we are with the war in Ukraine. I think it's good that President Zelensky will be there so they can hear it from the horse's mouth, if you like, about what the Ukrainians have had to endure under 3 years of remorseless cruise missile attacks by the Russians, including even against children's hospitals. So it's good if they get that from President Zelensky. And then I presume the Prime Minister will make a statement in Parliament on Monday, both about his trip to the United States and his meetings with President Trump, and about his meeting with Zelensky, and about the outcome of the summit. So Monday in Parliament is likely to be an important day.
Everybody's going to have to watch their P's and Q's, though, aren't they, when they obviously make some sort of statement after today's meeting? Because while they will want to be seen to be doing the heroic thing, if you like, and standing by Ukraine, they're also going to not want to upset clearly very sensitive President Trump.
Well, we actually had a big debate last Thursday in the House of Commons about Ukraine. And there was absolute, unwavering, cross-party support right across the House for Zelensky and for the Ukrainian people. And two key themes emerged in that debate. I was there, I took part in it. And the first theme was there should be no negotiations about the future of Ukraine without Ukraine being directly involved. The whole Commons agreed on that. And the second key theme was that if there is to be a settlement, and we would all like to see the war come to an end, we'd like to see the murder of Ukrainians by Putin cease. But if that is to happen, we cannot allow a settlement that would be on President Putin's terms, because if you do, his tank factories are working free shift. Russia is now an all-out war economy. He would just pocket that, wait a few years, and have another go. And ultimately, the Ukrainians are fighting for our freedom too. They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for liberty. And if we don't help the Ukrainians stop Putin in Ukraine, then a few years later we'd have to stop him in the Baltic states. And if we didn't stop him there, we'd have to stop him in Poland. And by then, you're into something that would look pretty much like World War III. So far better to back Zelensky and stop Putin coming while we can.
Do you think the United States absolutely have to be involved with the peace in Ukraine? President Trump and those close to him perhaps have threatened pulling out their support for Ukraine. Or do you think Europe, as we see 18 European leaders come to London, can go it alone, essentially, to tackle the threat from Russia?
Well, NATO has been the absolute bedrock of our security since shortly after the end of the Second World War. And remember, D-Day itself was an American, British, Canadian operation. So, to my mind, it's vital that we maintain the integrity of NATO. And that means keeping the United States very greatly involved in the security of Europe. What we don't want to do is to have this row, and clearly it was a row, interfere with the long-term stability of NATO. That's a point that Mark Rutte, the Secretary General, was making yesterday. He'll be there at the summit too, as I understand it. He suggested that somehow President Zelensky should try and make it up with President Trump, and let's see whether that proves possible. I hope it does. I mean, I think what happened in the White House was wrong. I think it would have been far better if they'd had those discussions in private. Yeah. And then if they wanted to get heated with each other, that necessarily wouldn't have helped President Putin. So, but I think it's ultimately very important that we maintain the integrity of NATO, and that means keeping the United States involved in Europe's defence. And it really matters to America too. Why? When we had that debate on Thursday, the debate was led off brilliantly by Ian Duncan Smith, former soldier, and he made the point that if Putin is seen to win in Ukraine, President Xi in China will conclude the Western democracies are weak, and that would embolden him to try and capture Taiwan. So the way Ian put it was, the road to Taiwan runs through Ukraine. So this is a time for the Western democracies, including the United States, to come together in defence of our values against autocratic leaders, be they in Moscow or Beijing or Tehran.
Very interesting point there. We must not look weak. You should always go in looking strong, at least. Marc-Francois, thanks very much indeed. Let's see what political commentator Piers Pottinger makes of that. We should look strong after today's defence meeting.
Well, it's essential. The problem is that NATO is looking fragile. And everyone also, when talking about NATO, always forgets to bring in the important element, which is the second largest force in NATO, is Turkey. Turkey's military force is 3 times the size of the UK and also is well disposed to Putin. Erdogan has cozied up to Putin on more than one occasion, and it is a weak link in the NATO armoury, if it were, because so NATO itself is far from united. Europe is far from united. Most of our leaders in Europe are looking pretty fragile.
Do you think we've been living then for the last 30, 40, 50 years under the misconception that NATO is strong?
Yes. And I think the one thing Trump is right about is people haven't been spending enough on defence. And the one good thing that's come out of all of this so far is that we are now finally committing to it. And in fact, more than this loan, which is very significant to Ukraine, Rachel Reeves has also indicated today that she's going to use the National Wealth Fund, which is £27 billion, to help increase defence spending further and Ukraine further. Now, that's bad news for Ed Miliband, because that National Wealth Fund was there for his mad net zero policies. So there's some significant changes going on very rapidly. And I think Marc-Francois is right about Monday. There's going to be an awful lot of questions in the House, because this government is moving quite quickly to change an awful lot of its stances because of the situation they now find themselves in, which is critical. I'm also very, very concerned about bringing our monarch into this. I mean, Starmer thought it was a trump card the day before the Zelensky showdown,
didn't it? Yeah.
And now it looks like something that's really rather embarrassing. Hence the sudden meeting with Zelensky and our monarch in Sandringham today.
But I mean, Cameron is our royal correspondent as well.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way they're going to rescind the invitation for a second state visit, is there?
There have been calls to do so, but I suspect, I'm sure perhaps you would agree with me, Piers, that they would kick it into the long grass rather than put an actual rubber stamp, we're stopping the state visit.
Absolutely. But, I mean, the monarch is guided by the government. And, I mean, he's seeing Zelensky at the behest of the government. I mean, I hope Zelensky, as it's a beautiful day in Sandringham, gets some time to walk along Hokum Beach and take the air in the beautiful Norfolk countryside.
He needs it.
He needs it, poor chap. But, I mean,
last year.
I mean, to be serious here, bringing our monarch in, who is not supposed to be political, is a very dangerous card to play. He is a ceremonial constitutional head, and to bring him into political matters is a very dangerous precedent.
Well, the government would argue they're using his soft power of diplomacy rather than using him as a political...
Of course. I mean, that was the ploy. But now it doesn't look so clever. Unfortunately, Starmer on Thursday walked into a trap with Trump, and he came back gloating like a Cheshire cat, thinking he had a great success. In fact, he came away with nothing. He achieved nothing.
Did he not have a success in terms of strengthening the relationship between the UK and the US in terms of a potential trade
And there was
deal?
almost, there was almost a promise, wasn't there, from President Trump of no tariffs?
He didn't say that.
No,
and also, I mean, the fact is we don't actually need to do a trade deal with America because we already have a surplus. America is 17% of our trade worldwide. We have a £70 billion surplus in trade with America. If we kept the status quo, it would be fine. It's actually Europe that has the problem with America, not us.
Can we just come back to the NATO point in terms of European nations perhaps not spending enough? Why do you think it's taken President Trump to start banging the drum and saying Europe, UK, we're not paying enough for NATO, we're spending too much money as in the US?
Well, I think the European leaders have for many years sat around being very complacent. enjoying the gravy train of Brussels and Strasbourg, taking enormous salaries for doing absolutely nothing, and it's now all coming home to roost. And the fact is, if I was an American citizen, I'd be pretty proud of Trump, because he is putting America first. Everything he's doing is showing that. And I think it's extremely important that we understand that America is now really taking itself seriously in a way that it hasn't for quite a long time. And that is a seismic change, and our leaders in Europe look like a pretty third-rate bunch at the moment.
Well, let's hope they don't this afternoon. Maybe.
Well, if they come up with anything, I'll be amazed.
Well, we'll see. We will see, yeah. They're meeting around about midday, so we'll keep you completely covered on that. Piers, thanks very much indeed. We'll see you again in about an hour's time, I think. Now, our poll of the day is a very moot question, if you like. Here it is. Do you agree with the Prime Minister, as he said to Zelensky yesterday, do you agree with the Prime Minister that Britain stands with Ukraine for as long as it takes? Do you agree?
Yes, so far 27% of you say yes, while 73% of you say no. The final results will be announced later in Nana Okoye's show.
Yes, I think a lot of people have been in touch today saying, hang on a minute, he said he was speaking for the whole of the UK, but he wasn't speaking for me. So it's divided opinion. Anyway, if you want to know any more about all of that or how to vote, gbnews.com/poll.
Well, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom today. The Vatican has said in the last hour that Pope Francis remains in a stable condition and had a peaceful night and is resting. That's after a health setback this weekend after he suffered an isolated breathing crisis. The Pope was admitted to hospital in Rome on the 14th of February with a severe respiratory infection that triggered other complications, including double pneumonia.
Train fares in England and Wales are going to rise by around 4.6% from today. Rail cards will also rise in cost. It'll cost consumers hundreds of pounds more a year if they're regular commuters. We went out yesterday to ask whether you think our transport system is good value.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty good value for what I do every day.
Value for money, wow. With the current service, I would say not.
If the increase actually goes on improving the service, is fine. But if it goes to the shareholders, that's another crazy thing. Why are the trains not in completely public ownership?
Israel has agreed to a US proposal to extend the ceasefire in Gaza. The first phase of the ceasefire was due to expire today, but according to the US proposal, the ceasefire will now cover the Ramadan and Passover periods.
And the Met Police have said farmers could be arrested if they drive their tractors to a march in central London scheduled for Tuesday next week. Organisers have said that the so-called Pancake Day rally is aiming to be bigger and better than the previous two demonstrations, and they're campaigning, of course, against changes to those inheritance tax rules. But now conditions have been imposed under the Public Order Act, preventing demonstrators from bringing tractors other than the limited amount already agreed.
It's always quite a sight seeing a load of tractors in central London. Of course, they're usually confined to the countryside, aren't
Well,
they?
there's so much... And you normally only ever see them at a distance, don't you?
Yes.
From the road, and they're there in the field. When you actually see them up close and compared to cars in ordinary roads, they're enormous.
Oh, absolutely. And we've obviously covered extensively on GB News the first two farmers' protests. And we send out reporters, our own presenters, Patrick Christie's and Emily Carver and the rest, and them stood next to these giant tractors. Having to climb up 3 or 4 steps to get into the cab to speak to the farmer. It's quite a sight to behold.
And then you're confronted with the fact that, yes, you suddenly... When the farmers talk about the fact that they have to spend a fortune on just their equipment, you see, I mean, those things cost an absolute arm and a leg, don't they?
Hundreds of thousands of pounds for some farming equipment, which very easily racks up to £1 million, which is the threshold for...
Especially if you're Jeremy Clarkson and you buy the sort of Ferrari version. Anyway, shall we find out what the weather's got in store for you? Here's Craig Snell.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, now time for our Great British Giveaway, and it's the final week. You've got to get moving if you haven't already taken part, because I think the lines close on Friday. You could be one of two winners winning these amazing prize bundles with a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers and 10 grand in tax-free cash. Here's how to take part.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of two big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have two prize bundles that have to be won. There's two lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of luck with that. And still to come, after their blow-up in the Oval Office, should the UK rescind President Donald Trump's state visit invitation? That's next.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
We often ponder the state of the nation. So this story then really caught my eye. A head teacher who some people have dubbed, I quote, the head teacher from hell. He's caught the press attention because he has a school in Wales. He's now looking at introducing Saturday detentions. He says that we have to stop mollycoddling kids and start to bring back good old-fashioned discipline.
We are fed up with kind of being soft on discipline.
We are fed up of hiding behind words like well-being and safe spaces. There has to be a consequence to an action, and that's what we're trying to instill at Caldicot.
And tell me about the parents of some of these kids, because I would argue that much of the breakdown in society does come now. You see these kids on public transport, they don't have earphones in, they just listen to their music, they've got no respect for their elders. I know I sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but it all seems to have kind of broken down. And then I find myself, Alan, thinking, well, what are the parents doing in all of this? Are the parents supportive of your approach or not?
So we've got 1,300 parents. 2 or 3 took their children out of the school because they didn't agree with it. About 20 sort of kicked back, but now are on board. I think that's a great statistic. It shows that the overwhelming vast majority of people want this kind of discipline. And I don't blame young people today for the state of the culture or the nation. They are the fruit of it. I believe that if my generation puts in place strict discipline, firm boundaries, no means no, then we will get the young people that we want and that, you know, we deserve.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump has been invited for an unprecedented second state visit by King Charles. Now, we know this, don't we?
We do, but after the chaos in the Oval Office 2 days ago and Sir Keir Starmer taking a drastically different approach in welcoming Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday in London, should the UK now rescind Donald Trump's state visit invitation?
Well, joining us to discuss this, or debate it even, is the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and Labour activist and writer Aisha Ali Khan. So, Aisha, tell us why you think, that he should not come now.
Morning, Anne. Morning, Cameron. So basically, I think it was a wrong decision to invite him for a second state visit. Even the first time when Theresa May invited him, we organised. I was one of the women who organised the Women's March on London. We had nearly 100,000 people who protested throughout London when he arrived for that state visit. I think it's wrong to give somebody the red carpet treatment when they have behaved in such an appalling, bullying manner. And I think that given Keir Starmer's approach and how different it was, I have a feeling that Trump will not be happy and he himself will decide, I don't want to come. In 2017, we had reports of him refusing to visit the UK unless people were happy with the public were happy with his visit, and what he didn't want was people turning up and protesting, which is exactly what happened, by the way. So I think if we are trying to send a powerful message of solidarity with our Ukrainian brothers and sisters, this is not the way. We cannot allow somebody like Trump to come and give him a red carpet treatment, give him a state visit, and kind of overlook everything that he's done. That's just not sending the right message. And right now we have to stand united. We've got obviously Ukraine are fighting 3 years now. It's this relentless bloodshed, and the only way we can end this is if we bring both parties to the table for peace. But it has to be fair terms. It cannot just be a surrender for the Ukrainian people, or the Ukrainian people cannot be blackmailed by Trump over the signing of this mineral deal. So there's lots and lots of geopolitical issues right now that we need to assess. So I definitely think we need to, if we can't cancel the Trump second visit, we need to at least postpone it until things have settled down on that front.
And Stephen, you think President Trump should still be coming to the UK for a states visit, despite what happened on Friday in the Oval Office?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we should be ignoring the fact that the United States president is the most important leader in the world. He is also the leader of the most important trading country with the United Kingdom. After all, the United States has foreign inward investment into this country of £708 billion. That's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs that are on the line to American companies that are investing in this. I doubt very much that my opposition speaker would be impacted by the loss of jobs if America decided to put a trade deal on us or withdrew that investment from this, nor the 100,000 that would march against Trump, because you don't march against the people that are providing you with a salary and a wage. And that's why on your own program, you have 73% of the people here supporting the idea that President Trump should come. It's really, really seriously important, both economically and for jobs, for many people who are struggling to survive in this country at the moment.
But Esha, he's been invited now. I mean, we can't.
Sorry.
It would be a political disaster, wouldn't it, for us to rescind, to pull back on that invitation?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to quickly address what Stephen has just said. First of all, I'm a teacher. I actually work and I pay my taxes and everything. So the fact that I will not be impacted, everybody was impacted with the cost of crisis living. Everybody was impacted with what's going on in the economy. So just for you to suggest that I will not be impacted, I don't understand where that's coming from. Secondly, the idea that we are going to be trading partners with the US. In 2016, we were basically told after Brexit, we're free to make trade deals. To this day, 9 years later, we have not had a single trade deal signed and sealed and delivered with the US. This idea is unicorns. We're not going to get a trade deal, and if we are going to, it's going to take years, well after Trump leaving the office. And also, upsetting somebody who is so thin-skinned, Trump will get upset over the slightest little thing. So this idea that we have to constantly walk on eggshells and bow down to him and to make him happy in case we get this fabulous trade deal, that we are a powerful country in our own right. We are not some small country in the middle of nowhere. We actually need to stand our ground. And actually, Stephen, just to clarify another point which you've just raised, 73 people actually said we're not happy with Keir Starmer's statement of standing with Ukraine through the end. Actually, if you look on the Daily Mail website, 66% of the people have actually voted for the Trump visit to be cancelled. And I actually feel that's a much more representative number of people and how they feel about this. So I think obviously, and sorry, I had to make those points. You're right. If we were to rescind right now, it would obviously cause ripples, maybe even waves. But you know what? It might send a powerful message to people like Trump and Vance and so on, bullies, who basically think that because they are holding one of the most powerful offices in the world, as Stephen's already pointed out, that they can do whatever they want with whoever they want to. Right now, the Ukrainians need our support. And also, what
Aisha,
kind of
I'm really
message
sorry. I'm going to have to cut you
Putin?
off because we're running out of time. We need to get Stephen's point of view, I'm afraid. But Stephen, when do you think this state visit should take place? Should it be after we have come to some kind of peace negotiation with Ukraine? And when I say we, I mean Europe and the United States.
I think it should come when it's relevant to Keir Starmer and the ability of the King to be able to host it. I'd like to have it as soon as possible, because obviously, there are important parts, not just about a future trade deal, which would improve the current economic environment, but as you said, Anne, this is really important about the metrics and the way that we're seen. The Queen used to see thousands of leaders across her lifetime, many of those that we disagreed with. And the importance of the King hosting this shows his significant soft power, this soft power of the United Kingdom. I'm afraid that we're wrong. We're not a powerful nation in many ways anymore. We're a poor, weakening nation that is finding that out to be true now in the way that our economy is declining. And as a teacher, you'd recognize very clearly there is a difference between the trade deal, our current economics, and that if trade deteriorates as it is in this country any further, there won't be any growth to be able to pay for those people in public services like yourself. That is why it's important to have a soft power like the King being able to negotiate with individuals from all political parties and all views across the world.
Guys, we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, though. This is something that's going to rumble on for quite a while yet. No doubt you'll have your chance to have your say again. So thank you very much to them, and do stay with us because Aidan will be coming up with the latest sports news next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back.
You won't believe what we've just been talking about in the break. About having to be rescued when you're in a swimming pool with sharks or something.
Yes. The reason we're talking about that is because we're talking about our experiences of Las Vegas when we have been. And the Rugby League, Aidan, is going to Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's been there all weekend. So the big game last night was Warrington Wolves against Wigan Warriors. It finished 48-24. And that's a Super League game. Well, it's a 65,000-seater stadium, the Allegiant Stadium it's called. Fans were in and out because there were 3 or 4 matches, and it's going on until today as well. 50,000 saw the Wigan Warriors against the Warrington game, which is pretty good, yeah. And they reckon, my friend who's over there tells me that, contrary to reports over here which claim that only 10,000 Brits went over there, it was actually closer to 16,000 Brits who made the trip presumably from the northwest of England.
Dedicated,
Well, you can get a direct flight, I think, from Manchester to Vegas.
Yes, you can.
So they thought about it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. And, you know, more generally, Cameron, these sports, I mean, we joked yesterday that how can Rugby League crack America when it's only recently cracked the M62 corridor. So it's very much predominantly based in the northwest of England and spreading over into Yorkshire as well. You think of the big beasts, Warrington, Widnes, Castleford, Leeds, etc. You've got one club in London who play down at Wimbledon, the London Broncos, but they're very much an outlier. But why not try and expand your sport, your brand, into a completely different territory? There is evidence that rugby league can garner some traction in these areas. I mean, it certainly is very popular in parts of New Zealand, in Australia as well, parts of northern France as well. They play it, but you know, lots of singers, lots of bands try and crack America. We were talking yesterday, Anne, actually, about singers who cracked America without ever cracking
Without ever being known here.
Exactly. I mean, Bush were a good example of that, the band, back in the 90s. And Gavin Rossdale, the lead singer, said, well, he ended up marrying Gwen Stefani, and he said they cracked America, but weren't that well known over here, apart from when he used to appear at Wimbledon. Anyway, I digress. We're off into 90s pop culture, aren't we?
But the point is, they had a really good audience.
Yes, they did. They adapted their kits slightly, so they wore a bit of a, the US flag the livery was on the shirt. You could see it while they were going around. And as you mentioned, it was hot as well.
Well, I was going to say, temperatures in the northwest of England slightly different to Las Vegas.
I know, so they've had to adapt their game, and they've had to have. That's why they had a week or 10 days, I think it was, acclimatising, training, getting ready for it. And I think, generally speaking, I spoke to someone yesterday who was planning to go next year, so that's in the diary for next year. It looks like it will happen again, and I think it's a really imaginative thing to do. Why spend so much time trying to get the brand into London when rugby union is already so strong in the south of England and in the west of England, and there's this huge market over there who, there might be an appetite for it, there might not be, but why not try? And there was a great quote as well, there's a great tweet from somebody who was there. It's not official or anything, but let me read this too. I spoke to a few of the beer salesmen in the Allegiant Stadium. They said it's been the greatest night ever in beer sales. One said they sold they sold more beer in 60 minutes of rugby league than in an entire Las Vegas Raiders game. So you can tell the Brits have been in town
when
that happens, can't you? So it looks like it's been successful, but you probably won't judge the overall effects for another few months yet when you look back on how it's gone.
And I bet there's a few sore heads as well in the hotels.
Without doubt, and why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Very quickly, let's talk about this, what's been described as a reckless head-high foul.
Yes, so this is...
very quickly.
Steve Parish gave off yesterday about Liam Roberts, the Mill goalkeeper, who was given a red card for what was a wanton assault on his striker, Jean-Philippe Matete. He took to the airwaves at half-time and gave off, and that was really unprecedented. But we're pleased to say that Mateta has said he's OK and he's going to come back stronger than ever.
OK, jolly good. Thank you, Aidan.
Thank you, Aidan.
Yeah, lovely to see you. And in a couple of moments' time, we'll be looking through the newspapers.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, if you're heading towards Spain and the Canaries over the coming days, there will be some rain and potentially some strong winds around at times, but conditions will improve here as the week goes on. For parts of Central Med, generally a fine start to the week here, maybe a few showers around, and for eastern areas, certainly temperatures are beginning to climb after a cold few days. And further west, actually, sunshine by the middle part of the week for Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
One former Royal Marine has just set up a state-of-the-art new fitness brand which combines fitness, dating, clubbing. It's all in a very unique experience.
Yes, Will McLaren and co-founder Toby Spooner have managed to fuse well-being, dating and what they call community building in their new full-day event, Metrics, which also includes high-intensity workouts. Will and Toby are joining us now in the studio.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, gents. Thank you for joining us. I'm very interested in this because all I seem to see at the minute is high rocks. But from what I've read about Metrics, this seems like the new upgraded version. What can you tell us about it? Tell our viewers all about Metrics.
Well, it is a fitness competition, but we are combining the music and production element. Also, we want it to be quite a social event as well. So we want people to come, meet each other and have a great day out.
So What does that actually mean? Tell us a little bit more in detail. Toby, just tell us a little bit about what's involved.
So, in short, it's an immersive fitness competition.
Yeah.
So, you can do a partner workout, you can bring a friend, or we can actually make people. So, we're getting that dating element.
Well, it was Valentine's yesterday.
Precisely,
so,
right.
is this going to be the new Tinder? People going along to Metrics and meeting their future partner?
Well, exactly that. So, we've done a load of research into it, and what we've found is that exercise is slowly becoming more of a dating scene.
So is it, I assume, some behind the scenes of what Metrics will look like? Because it's still to start, isn't it? Is it March it begins?
Yeah, so the 1st and 2nd of March, so it's in 2 weeks, at a magazine in North Greenwich.
We've known each other for a fair while, but we kind of put our heads together. So we've worked in fitness for years, and we found that music really drives performance. Yeah. And people love music. People will come to our classes, they'll come away and they'll say, music was so good. And it just elevates the experience. We said, how can we put this on a scale tenfold?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello again, nice to see you again. And with us now, looking through the newspapers, broadcaster and activist Lewis Oakley and social campaigner Winston Davis. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming back. Lewis, right, the Daily Mirror is helping people get back into work. What's that about?
Yep, so this is the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, who's basically saying, look, we've got this massive benefits bill. It's currently $45 billion a year. It'll go up to $70 billion by 2030 if they don't intervene. However, and I read this article twice, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? So she's saying Labour's reforms include early intervention to get people healthy, fixing the broken assessment system and tailored support to help get people back into jobs. And I just read that, I think, you don't have an idea, do you? You're not really sure what you're going to do. I mean, number one I would say about this whole bill is, COVID. First of all, do not shut the country down, because we're still reeling with the effects of that. But I think there's another side of this, which is that work needs to pay, and it's not. You speak to a lot of people that are on benefits, they say, oh, well, I've got a bit of a job, but I can't do too many hours because then it'll impact my benefits. And so then people say, oh, well, cut the benefits. And the thing I would say about benefits is it is the bare minimum people can live on. The problem is that the lower paying jobs don't pay enough to live on. And that's where you've got this real disconnect, which I think is something that really needs to be looked at. And the second thing is, if we're being completely honest, we have a country that punishes ambition. I would say from my own point of view, so I work sort of 6 different jobs. So I've got, the podcasts and writing, and I come and do this. I've got a full-time job. I had to pay my tax bill for the 2023-2024 year, and I basically had to pay the whole thing back. I was like, that's insane, though. What incentive is that for me to get up at 4 a.m, to have to go to a TV studio, to then go to work, to then go and do a podcast, to then go and do a radio show? I just think that is a big problem. And it also comes back to why we have a stagnating economy, is if I'm paying all that back in tax, I'm not investing that money into the economy. I'm not renting out a podcast studio. I'm not hiring a producer. I'm having to do that all myself.
The thing is, this was a problem under the Conservative governments as well, wasn't it, Winston? It's not suddenly changed and suddenly a problem because we've now got a Labour administration.
No. This is something that has been developing for, again, 15 years, 20 years, accelerated because of COVID. And actually then some people have almost an excuse, I'm not feeling great. Mental health has been exasperated. But I do think there's something towards what Lewis is saying about the fact that we need to be incentivised for people to get up and go to work. They need to be, and it's easy to say, oh, get up and go to work. But actually, you can have your support financially for this period whilst you're trying to get yourself going. We're going to give you additional support. Once you're up and running, then we can take the stabilisers off and let you go. And it works into business, as a small business owner, it's like you should have stabilisers to help you grow and really want to employ people and push forward. And then once you're up to a certain level, then, okay, cool, then you contribute proportionally as you're getting stronger. And I think that they're sort of missing the understanding, the pulse of all of this, which is, let's get people moving and give them an incentive to move.
Yeah.
I must say that when you described what Liz Kendall, the way Liz Kendall had phrased it, it just sounded so wishy-washy.
Yeah, I don't see a strong plan here. When we've all just discussed what the big problems are. She's not talking about that. She's not got a really good idea for it. So I wouldn't hold my breath that they're going to be able to sort it. I think what they'll do is they'll say we're just cutting benefits. But it's like, well, what do we want? Do we want people homeless on the streets? Like that, there has to be. We have to look at that point between benefits and getting a job. And as Wilson's saying, you know, when we take the stabilisers off, that's where we really need to be looking.
That used to be the way it was, wasn't it? You went for unemployment benefit. You had to actually go to an office and talk to a counsellor who would be looking after your case and asking you if you've been to interviews for jobs and what you wanted to do and trying to steer you in the right direction. But everything's online now, and you don't get that same interaction and counselling, do you?
People are going to call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think there's some people that are quite happy for the poor to be poorer and to be out of work and to be lower down, and to the people that are very rich and very powerful to become even more rich and more powerful.
Why'd you say that?
Well, because
the rich are getting richer.
Because the rich are getting richer. Because the people that are pulling the strings, it's quite easy for them to sit there and, you know, hoard their wealth. We've seen the biggest transfer of wealth over the last 5-6 years, and we have in a history of existence. And the people that are right at the top, they're like, yeah, poor people stay poor, blame it on other poor people while we get rich.
But it's the ultimate sign of a dysfunctional society, isn't it?
Definitely.
Where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really changed, this is not a male-woman thing, but obviously in living memory, you know, you used to be able to have one person that could go out to work and could support a family of 3 and their other half. And that's not saying anything about men or women, because I think a woman should be able to do that too. But we've gone from being able to support an entire family on one wage to you've now got 2 parents working and it's not enough.
I think nearly everybody would agree you can no longer run a family on one wage. But that was the family unit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Old-fashioned.
Winston, let's talk about the path to gang violence in The Observer today, beginning at 4 years old. That seems incredibly young.
Yeah, I think it's a little misleading, but essentially what they're saying is that this is a programme run by the London Mayor of London office, and it's a violence reduction unit, and it's a pilot scheme. And what it's looking at is the issues with language, communication that exists, and speech with young people, and that the 2/3 of people that are young students that are at risk of exclusion have problems with speech, language, and communication. So this is an attempt to address that. And they take the Glasgow model, which has been really successful in reducing violence, and actually it's looking at it from a social problem rather than an educational problem. So they are looking at things like leadership. They're looking at how to support families outside of the school. They're looking at youth clubs. You know, in London, we've had 130 youth clubs closed from 300.
Now, why do we always talk about youth clubs? I mean, nobody seems to be setting any new ones up. Why not?
But it was saying, you look at modelling in Glasgow, they've got more youth clubs. They've addressed it.
So where they have done it, it seems to be working.
Yeah, exactly that. Listen, I'm a chair of a charity, right? Southside Young Leaders Academy. We help young boys with education and leadership development training, doing soft skills, how to shake a man's hand, how to have debating skills, right? One boy came to us at 13, he was at risk of being expelled, said he's disruptive, outspoken. 5 years later, he got offered a place at Oxford.
Wow.
Whoa.
These things happen if you give incentives, but we don't get any government funding. There's no funding to solve these problems. If you give people the opportunity, give young people the skills, give them the experience, the awareness, a lot of them will run with it.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, isn't it? It's like, for all the problems we have and the papers say, it's like we actually have the solution here. We know what works, so it just needs funding and doing.
So why is the funding not going to the right places?
It goes back to the last conversation we had a moment ago. I'm sorry, it's a full circle. But people actually don't necessarily want solutions to these problems, I believe. I do. You know, it's mouthpiecing, yes, we want solutions, but back it up with money. You know, and it goes back to the right conversation we had at the start of the actual programme of we're sending all this money abroad. We need it here. You know, let's look up...
A lot of people watching this morning will agree with you on that.
But let's look after our own here, sort ourselves out, and then go out into the world and save the world.
Would we sort ourselves out?
Well, it's up for debate, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, look, thank you so much for coming in today. We come back to this time and again. It's the family unit and actually engaging young people and trying to make them feel important. That seems to be what it's all about.
100%.
There you go. Yeah. OK, do stick with us, because we are going to be meeting the most remarkable dog in the next half hour.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tom Pickup, host of the Really 007 podcast. Hello, Tom. Thank you very much for joining. I've just been singing Live and Let Die to myself for some random reason. So what's going on here, then? Is Bond going to be changed forever? I mean, Barbara Broccoli was pretty hands-on and tough with what happened to that.
Yeah, you've got to think that this goes back to 1962 when it all started with Sean Connery and Dr. No. Her father, Cubby Broccoli, got the film rights and began the franchise and the movie character we all know as James Bond. So it's a big change. It was always going to come to an end eventually. Barbara took over pretty much when her father died, before GoldenEye, when Pierce Brosnan was the new Bond. But she's really had all the control with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson, who's the other producer on Eon, since then, since 95, really. And they didn't cast Pierce Brosnan themselves. That was Cubby's casting. Their real casting was Daniel Craig. And I think now that that chapter has come to an end, and whether you liked it or not, it had a very definite ending, maybe that's been part of the reason where they think they'd rather spend their time in retirement doing something else. It's time to pass it on. And they've got a ready-made partner already in Amazon.
Is it going to get a little bit woke, though, Tom?
I've no idea, but all I know is that Jeff Bezos obviously is head of Amazon. He's already put a tweet up or on X saying, "Who do you want as the new James Bond?"
Oh, okay.
So he's already including the fans, which I suppose is a good thing. Whether or not we'll have a say, we don't know. But I think what it'll be is what people want, what people on the outside see as James Bond, not necessarily super fans like me.
The People's Channel.
Good morning. Is it crunch time today for Ukraine as European leaders gather in London?
President Zelensky receives a warm welcome from Sir Keir Starmer at Downing Street.
As the UK announces over £2 billion worth of funding for Ukraine.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, it follows what's been described as a catastrophic meeting at the White House on Friday between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. But can the US and Ukraine mend their relationship? And what does this all mean for the future of NATO?
And as calls grow for President Trump's second state visit to be recalled, President Zelensky is actually going to meet the King later this afternoon in Sandringham.
And rail fares to rise in England and Wales today. Find out later how much more you could be spending on rail travel.
And police are going to crack down on farmers at Tuesday's protest because they're going to be told to leave the tractors at home.
And British music's Night of Nights, the Brit Awards, Charlie XCX, Sam Fender and Stormzy were the big winners, and celebs made a splash on the red carpet.
And then we'll look off to Hollywood because preparations are getting underway already for the 97th Academy Awards. That's the Oscars. And we'll find out which films and which stars have been nominated.
And very excited about this one. A hero firefighter who attended the Grenfell Tower fire retires after 12 years of service. Sherlock, the working Cocker Spaniel, will be joining us live in the studio.
Good morning. The sun will once again be shining for some of us. Find out where with me a little later on.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Ann Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. Well, just when you thought, you know, when Keir Starmer came back from Washington and everything was rosy, suddenly things weren't so rosy anymore. And there's a lot of politics going on, if you like. Crunch time today for Ukraine, because European leaders are gathering in London for a special defence summit.
Yes, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in London yesterday, straight from what has been described as a catastrophic meeting with President Trump at the White House.
And we're seeing pictures right now of Keir Starmer. He came out of number 10, and instead of just waiting on the doorstep for President Zelensky to come to him, he walked down the road and embraced Zelensky. And you can see, I mean, that's very, very symbolic, isn't it? Then they stood together, waved to, completely ignored the reporters' questions, of course.
Yes.
Which was just as well. I couldn't help wondering if Keir Starmer is through his smiling teeth saying, don't say anything, don't answer any questions at all.
Quite possibly, but there was a point where the Prime Minister acknowledged the crowds, the cheering crowds of Brits outside in Whitehall.
And a lot of people today have said, he said, you know, you heard the crowds, the British are behind you. And a lot of people have been in touch today saying, oh, well, not me. They were Ukrainian supporters who were outside cheering. Maybe not everybody agrees. Anyway, they had a very successful meeting.
Achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine.
Well, following the pair's meeting, Chancellor Rachel Reeves signed a £2.26 billion loan agreement with Ukraine to bolster its military capabilities.
And then later today, following the European Leaders Summit, President Zelensky is going to head to Sandringham to meet with King Charles.
Well, Camilla Tominey is up next with her show. She joins us live from Westminster now. Camilla, good morning to you. I mean, what an absolutely extraordinary 48 hours it's been for politics.
hasn't it just? I'm still getting over Friday and the scenes in the Oval Office. So there's much to discuss with my guests on the show today. I'm going to be speaking to Nicholas Thomas-Symonds, who is the Minister for European Affairs, and that's a significant role as we look forward to this summit at Lancaster House, not least because Starmer is showing leadership there. I think he should be credited with taking the lead with President Zelensky yesterday after his own meeting at the White House. Didn't you think that he just looked a lot more comfortable in the company of the Ukrainian president than he had been with Trump? We know that Keir Starmer, and indeed many members of his cabinet, and Trump aren't all natural bedfellows, but he's now having to walk this tightrope, isn't he, between trying to show that support for Zelensky while also trying to get Trump back at the table to negotiate this minerals deal to ensure that there is some degree of peace that can be done in Ukraine between the Ukrainians and Russia. So that's difficult. He's leading the way today with this summit, and apparently he is very much going to say to other European leaders, we have put up defence spending. You just saw Rachel Reeves signing that extra loan to Ukraine, which is in addition to that pledge to increase defence spending from 2.3% to 2.5%. He's also going to be saying to those European leaders around the table, listen, you've actually got to now put your money where your mouth is. Otherwise, we can have no defence of our own position against America in this. The other observation that I've had this morning is how interesting it is in this post-Brexit world. Do you remember all of those Remainers that said that we wouldn't have a seat at the table if it came to security matters? Actually, our positioning post the referendum result, funny enough, has put us in quite good favour, not just with the Americans because we aren't linked to the EU and its perceived lack of defence spending, but also because we've kept our end up per GDP and also now are taking this leadership role. Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, has said if we're going to have a future summit, it needs to involve America. It's not today. But these are all questions I'm going to be asking of Mr. Thomas-Symonds, also speaking to Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel. What did she make of the scenes in the Oval Office as a very vocal supporter of Trump? And I'm going to be asking the same question to Richard Tice, because I appreciate that a lot of reform supporters might be more on Trump's side on this, might think that this is a war that Ukraine can't win, that Britain, like America, don't want to be dragged further into it. But I do think it's interesting that usually outspoken reform MPs have remained quite quiet on what happened on Friday in the Oval Office.
Well, a lot of people, don't you think, are having to tread a tightrope on this. I mean, clearly they want to embrace Zelensky and they're going to be having, or by the look of it, Keir Starmer is going to push them into talking money because he's already made that pledge. So they've got to, they want to sort of be seen to be embracing their commitment to Ukraine. On the other hand, they thought 48 hours ago that they were friends with President Trump. How are they going to tread both lines?
It's a difficult one, but I think this is one of those situations where lots of things can be true at the same time. Trump can be right on European defence spending. He can also be right on the fact that Ukraine can't win this war because the Europeans haven't given them enough to finish it off. But it can also be the case that his behaviour towards President Zelensky was unedifying and unbecoming, and that he and J.D. Vance did seem to ambush the Ukrainian president. You know, all these different propositions can be true. And we've also got Starmer, I think, in a kind of confusing pattern for himself. On one hand, we don't necessarily associate Labour, do we, with being hawkish on defence. And now he is very much nailing his colours to the mast on that front. And that should be something that the right, and I include Reform, support, because Reform wants to see itself as the sort of party of Churchillians and Thatcherites. So I just feel we're in one of those situations, and it is the Trump factor, that you don't know from one day to the next what's going to happen, and we are in a kind of topsy-turvy world, having to take it each day as it comes.
It should be a great programme, Camilla. Thanks very much indeed. I always watch it on my way home. Yes. Not while I'm driving, to be honest.
Listening.
Yes,
on
exactly.
GB News Radio.
Absolutely. Political commentator Piers Pottinger joins us now. It is fascinating, isn't it, that even those people who feel that Trump was a bit of a bully the other day have to acknowledge that what has resulted from it is European leaders sitting around a table and a British table, you know, in Lancaster House in London, talking real money and talking about their responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big wake-up call, particularly to the European community and the European leaders. And what's very significant, of course, and this is a very, very going to be a very delicate meeting with the leaders because, first of all, there are 18 of them, so getting a unanimous verdict at the end of it will be quite an achievement.
Who will chair it? Keir Starmer?
Well, he's the host. It's in London. But, I mean, you see the loan that Rachel Reeves has given, she has referred to it as being ensured, an unusual term, by the frozen Soviet assets. Now, there are £246 billion of Soviet frozen assets in European financial institutions. Now, if you start unlocking those and seize those assets, you could help fund Ukraine and its redevelopment and restoration. But would Russia immediately interpret that as an act of war? And that's highly possible. And already they've come very, very close to it by using this frozen asset as a collateral for this loan, which is very surprising. I was very shocked when Rachel Reeves announced this yesterday, not in Parliament again, of course. But they are moving very quickly, but it's an incredibly delicately balanced situation. And Putin is sitting back and laughing at everyone at the moment, which is, I think, the most depressing element of the whole thing.
And has there been any kind of response from Moscow on the £2.26 billion loan agreements?
We haven't heard anything yet. I would think later on in the day there might be a comment, because if they're using these frozen assets against Russia, effectively using their own money against them, which I think Trump might even find quite amusing, that you're using Russia's money to defend against Russia. But it's a question, if they react badly, it could up the ante and make the situation even more fragile than it is. This meeting with today at Lancaster House has got to come up with some unified statement at the end of it, whatever it is and however anodyne, as I suspect and fear it will be, because I doubt you're going to get all these European leaders overnight to commit to increasing defence spending and substituting a proper security backstop for Ukraine in lieu of Trump, who's clearly said, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Meanwhile, very, very quickly, what do you think of the fact that Zelensky is going to meet with the King this afternoon?
Well, I think that's a good thing. I think it's very important, and the King, I know, feels very strongly about Ukraine. But at the same time, we've got to be very careful about using the King as a political tool or a political negotiating tool. We've already played that with Trump. I think bringing the monarch into politics is a very dangerous thing to do.
OK, Piers, thank you very much for joining us.
Great pleasure.
OK. Stephanie's here now to talk about all the Brit Awards last night. Charlie XCX, her Brat summer album, did very, very well.
Yeah, it's the year of the Brit when it comes... the year of the Brat when it comes to the Brits. For Charlie XCX, she picked up 5 awards: Best Album, Artist of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Dance Act and Best Songwriting. I think it is well deserved for her. I think she hasn't been an overnight success. You know, this was her 7th album and she got signed to her record label when she was just 14 years old. But I think about the Brat album, it really done amazing on social media. It became a cultural phenomenon.
Did you do any of the TikTok dances?
Yes, I was last night. But then also there was some really good performances elsewhere from Sabrina Carpenter. She won the Best Global Success Award yesterday, which was presented by Diana Ross, but she done it live stream from a concert in Canada. And then there was also Jade Thirlwall from Little Mix. She's gone solo at the moment. She picked up Best Pop Act and she also performed. Both of their performances were quite racy. I can imagine some people who were watching last night probably felt a bit uncomfortable, but you know, when it comes to music, sex sells, so I think they really ramped it up last night.
And meanwhile, we've got the Oscars tonight.
Yes. We do have the Oscars. It's the 97th edition, and I think it is going to be quite an eventful evening. Leading the way is Emilia Perez. It's a Mexican musical drama about a transgender drug lord, and it's played by, I know it ticks all the boxes.
It really does.
It's played by Carla Sofia Gascon, who effectively has been cancelled all award season due to some offensive tweets she made in the past. She hasn't made any appearances, but she is set to appear at the Oscars tonight, and she's up for Best Actress. She'll be going up against Demi Moore for her performance in The Substance. It has been Demi's season during the whole film season. If she does win, 62 years old, it'll be her first Oscar.
Did you say Diana Ross did a live stream last night?
Yeah, she did.
She's 80.
Oh, she looks amazing.
Wow.
She doesn't look a day over 60.
No, she really doesn't.
She looks incredible.
Wow. So she's still performing?
Yeah, she is. She is. So Demi Moore, she wins tonight, age 62,
Brilliant.
but she faced stiff competition from Cynthia Erivo for Wicked.
She's making all the wow factor on the red carpet.
She is. She looks amazing. Again, sometimes I wonder, what are these Hollywood actresses doing to kind of just
they're all
look
on
so
Ozempic.
amazing? They are. We are going to be seeing a lot of Ozempic faces and bodies tonight.
Ozempic, Botox and glam squads as well.
Yes, it is.
Multiple.
It's so needed.
Wicked has a number of nominations.
It has 10 nominations, along with Conclave, which has 8. So I'm hoping it will be a good night for the Brits. For Ralph Fiennes, I hope he can pick Best Actor, because I think it's well-deserved and he's done really well. But I do think it's going to go to Adrian Brody for The Brutalist.
OK, that's your prediction. We'll
Yes.
see. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, we've just got a moment to remind you it's giveaway time, because on Friday the lines close on this one. But you've got 2 chances, if you like. It's 2 winners anyway. Each one will win a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in vouchers and 10 grand in tax-free cash. Here's how to take part.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is the moment you've been waiting for a long time.
I'm
isn't
so
it?
excited.
Yeah, you're listening to and watching Breakfast with Cameron and Anne, and we're going to introduce you now to Sherlock, the working Cocker Spaniel, who's been working with the London Fire Brigade for 12 years. Oh, he's gorgeous. And he's retiring. He's retiring now, but he has quite a career behind him.
Sherlock is already the best guest I've ever interviewed in my career. Paul, just talk to me about Sherlock's career. 12 years working for the London Fire Brigade.
Yes, so he first started working for us we got him at around about 4 months old, and from that point he showed real good tenacity, real good work ethic in what he does, which is searching for ignitable liquids and solids, whether they're burnt, evaporated or neat. And essentially he's gone from strength to strength. We would normally retire our dogs off around about 10 years old. However, his role has also been as an ambassador for us, so he's been really positive for us to be able to engage with our communities.
I mean, it's no accident that he is good at his job because he comes from good stock, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. His pedigree as such comes from Wales, and he's a working dog trials champion dog. And because of that tenacity that he has is almost bred into him. So we utilise that, we harness that for us for ignitable liquids. If he was border agency, it might be for drugs or explosives. So same with the Metropolitan Police or police services up and down the country.
We're seeing a bit of video right now, though, of is that what happens when he does sense something?
So this one,
he gets all excited.
Indicating it through the door. So it's not actually on the door, it's the other side. And you'll see he goes through and round behind the fire extinguisher. There's one of his samples. So his nose is so powerful that he can tell you that it's actually in the next room.
Isn't that amazing?
And don't we have a demonstration in our studio that Sherlock can do now?
You've
do it now, if that's OK.
Yes, let's do it.
So just earlier on, we hid a London Fire Brigade little fire engine, and on there I've just literally put a couple of droplets of ignitable liquid on top of it. Okay. And that was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So you need to do your work one more time.
Just a couple of drops.
So, yeah, just a couple of...
Isn't their nose something like 20,000 times more sensitive than our nose?
It is incredibly sensitive.
Yeah.
So we have roughly 2 million receptors in our nose. He has 200 million.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully he does the business.
Sherlock, let's see if he can find it. He doesn't know where it is.
No, he doesn't know, and I think he was ready for a snooze there. Right, Sherlock, found a bomb. This way. Sherlock, this way. Sherlock, this way. Find a bomb.
So he's sniffing all around the studio, for those of you listening on radio.
Sherlock.
He's currently the other side of the studio.
Right, now you can see how untidy our studio is, but...
Clever dog.
Right, he's having a
Where is it? Show me. He's found it.
No, he found it?
Has he found it?
Where is it? He is. He's found it. So for those listening
his nose will go on to close to where it is. I'll just bring it back to yourself.
Oh.
Come on. Good boy.
Oh,
there you go.
We can hear him plodding along because he's wearing little shoes.
That's what it was. It was just in the top of it. You'll see there's a little pinprick.
Yes.
And there was just a couple of dots of white spirit and barbecue lighter gel on there.
So if you're listening on the radio, Sherlock just found a little toy red fire truck by the breakfast desk.
Good lad.
And only 2 drops of liquid you put in a couple of days ago.
Yeah, just a very, very small amount. So we train from very, very small amounts that no equipment will find there on the marketplace other than in a laboratory, all the way through to high volumes. So obviously, if a crime's committed, it can be anything from contact trace, where we'd have that maybe on somebody's clothing, all the way through to something that's been introduced.
And have you just rewarded him with a tennis ball?
Yes.
Oh,
He
that's
loves
his
tennis.
reward.
So that
That's
is his
lovely.
reward. So
how brilliant has his career been?
phenomenal, actually, if the truth be known. So he was awarded a Animal Hero of the Year award by the RSPCA in 2017 for his work in the public sector. We were
What
fortunate.
happens to him now he's retiring?
Well, fortunate or unfortunate, he gets to live out his days with me. So I don't know.
That's nice. So you won't be parted.
So the Fire Brigade gift him. So he was owned by the Fire Brigade, but the Fire Brigade gifted him to me, and it's my opportunity to I suppose, give back a bit of time to him.
Sherlock, you are a wonderful dog, and everybody should be very proud of you.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for bringing him in.
It's a pleasure. Nice to meet you.
OK, what a way to end the programme. Thanks for being with us. Camilla Tominey coming up next.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, for most of us today, it's going to be largely dry. Best of the sunshine, however, will always be across more southern districts. So first thing this morning, plenty of sunshine across much of England and Wales, but a cold and frosty start here. More in the way of cloud further north. That cloud could potentially be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to creep into the very far northwest of Scotland come the end of the afternoon. For most of us, temperatures very similar to what we saw on Saturday. At best, I think 10 to 11 degrees. But in the sunshine, I think it should feel pleasant enough for the time of year. So moving into Sunday evening, a fine end to the day for much of southern England and Wales. Hardly a cloud in the sky across some parts of the country. Further north, we are back into some cloud, and again, that cloud will be thick enough in places to produce the odd spot of rain, with the main rain band just beginning to spread into western Scotland come dusk. Rain will also be accompanied by a strengthening wind, so quite a wet and windy end to the day across many northwestern parts of the country. And then as we go through the course of the night, that rain band will gradually sink its way southwards. Initially heavy across some of the higher ground of Scotland, but as it approaches Northern Ireland and Northern England, it will begin to weaken by the end of the night. Ahead of it, though, largely clear across much of England and Wales, so another cold and frosty night to come here as we start Monday morning. But here we will see plenty of sunshine as we move into the first day of the new working week. Further north, more in the way of cloud, but that rain band is continuing to weaken as the day goes on. And then to the north of it, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Temperatures on Monday still continuing the average theme, around 10 to 11 degrees across the south, feeling a little bit cooler in the wind further north, with highs here around 9 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I know. So, Chef Theo Michaels joins us in the studio to talk about this. We know we've got a problem with food waste in this country, Theo, but this idea that there's a younger generation who are just reading the back of a packet and going, well, that must have gone off then, throwing it in the bin. Why do they do that when maybe we wouldn't?
Do you know what? I think we live in an increasingly sanitised, bubble-wrapped world, right, where we've become detached from our food, we've become detached from using a bit of common sense. And so I think there's a generation that are doing exactly this. They're looking at a best before date to start with, which actually is meaningless. Best before date is me turning around to you two going, the fish should be at its prime on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the use by date. The use by date could be a week later. You know, we say the sniff test. That's what we should be doing. So I've had it before. I had a great experience once. I walked into a supermarket and I saw an Italian guy I know, and he was jumping around with so much excitement as he was collecting handfuls of Parmesan cheese that they said, it was going out of date. And he was laughing, so he was going, we age this stuff for years.
Yes.
It doesn't go out of date.
Yeah.
So he was buying it by the truckload. And I think the key thing is there is this sort of sniff test that people talk about, but it's absolutely right. It's ingrained in us. It's instinctive that if we smell something that's off, it's like giving someone a dose of salts.
I'm also wondering, with these dates on these packaging, did it actually do a favour to the supermarkets because it meant that you're throwing them away and buying less?
100%.
Buying more.
The use by dates only came out in the 70s, right? And that was done by one particular supermarket. And for me, I can't help be cynical about it, Bev. Who
was it?
It was Marks and Spencer's.
Was it?
Marks and Spencer's in the 70s.
They all followed suit.
And yet...
They all followed suit.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. What an extraordinary week in politics it has been. Government Minister for EU Relations and Paymaster General Nick Thomas-Symonds will join me. I'll be getting his reaction to the meetings this week between President Trump, President Zelensky and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer ahead of that crunch summit of European leaders later today. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel will also be here. I'll be asking her about